Okay.
There we go.
Call to order the Park Commission of March 5th, 2020. And first order of business is approval of minutes of January 2nd. If you can remember far back.
I'll move to approve the minutes. I would like one thing noted, though, put a line in there that says that our February meeting was canceled.
Any suggestion on where, or?
I don't care, somewhere at the
Okay,
top.
Okay, at the top. Sure.
Due to the lack of a quorum, right?
Yeah.
Yes, we could say that too.
Yeah. I'll put that. Okay.
Any other changes, deletions, corrections? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Oh, there's no motion yet.
Yep, PC.
Oh, no, I made the motion.
Yeah.
Oh, you
I
just second?
Yeah,
You made a second, okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion carried, minutes are approved. Item 3 is public appearances for any non-agenda items. Tripping on my own tongue. Hearing none, seeing none, we'll go on to item number 4, review and approval of agenda.
I'll move to approve the agenda with a couple of changes and a question. Since, well, they're supposed to be here. We
He's
have.
probably watching that too.
Oh, okay. Since we have people coming, Recreation Division, move that from D up to before the Burn Park Barn Swallow update. So D would become C effectively
Mhm.
for people attending and get through earlier. And
So item G to C, is that what you're doing?
Just flip flop D and C. C and D.
just D and C. Then I have a question about the communication items. Can you point out if there are any communication items that need to be discussed in tonight's meeting due to time constraints or scheduling, anything like that?
No, they're just update information.
Okay.
No action items, just. And certainly we can, when the communication item comes up, I guess I provided agenda comments and packet information, and if there's any, you could go in as far as saying if you've got any questions about the communication. I guess I just tried to provide some updated information, and if anyone has any questions on any of that, I think you could just do it that way if you'd like.
Okay. So I made the motion for that. Now, I do want to propose something for this group to decide on.
Let's get a second first.
Okay.
I'll second.
Second.
Okay, so what I would propose here is, since our meeting agenda is kind of heavy, since the February meeting was canceled due to lack of a quorum, we have all the February stuff on top of the new March stuff here. I would suggest that as a group here, we pick a time and decide at that time, just like the council does at 11 p.m. I think by law, the council has to decide by 11 p.m. whether you want to extend, just because of so many things on the agenda here, that we decide at whatever time we pick, that we vote on whether we want to continue or whether we've kind of had enough for tonight and shift the rest of the things off to the next
I
meeting.
suggest 8 p.m.
I think it's the prerogative of the commission members to make a motion at any point and to table whatever's remaining.
I thought it might be, sort of efficient if we picked a time. Let's say, I might say 10 p.m., but other people may say 9:30, 9 p.m., something like that. And when we hit that, we actually take a vote on whether to continue or, so that's what I'm suggesting as part of the agenda here.
I think we'll get through this, but depends how focused we are.
And I wouldn't want to, race through things. We should give due consideration to everything. That's our responsibility. But we also, shouldn't have to stay here twice as long, let's say, just because we didn't have a February meeting.
Well, if we get near your comfort level where you think we should sleep on it or whatever, make a motion and we'll get that discussion
So in other words, we
at that
could,
time rather
Yeah.
than, trying to do that now.
Okay.
Because I thought about it after you mentioned that, and I thought that would be an option that, anybody could make at any point.
okay, so we'll leave it open. Somebody's,
Yeah.
feels we're getting tired or
Till we
whatever.
get tired of each other. Yeah.
Raise a vote, yeah. Okay, that's fine.
Okay. So we have a motion with some switching item C and G, and we have a second. So all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion carried. So we are right down to item A, Terravesa Park. Phil, you can grab a seat if you want.
Okay. And maybe if I might just kind of introduce this, and certainly I wanted to take this opportunity to thank Phil and his group, his team, for providing this additional information for us, some additional work for the Park Commission. This is typically, something that is not provided by the developer. So I certainly wanted to thank Phil for providing that this information. And I guess what I'd also like to do is just to kind of focus our discussion on, we're certainly not going to get this all decided in one night, as I see. This is kind of a first draft of the park master plan for this development. And I guess what I'd like to do is concentrate on the two neighborhood park areas that Phil's identified here, and even further with that, from the Park Commission, and Phil can certainly speak of the amenities that were chosen for the space. If we could even just kind of limit the decision, if you would, to do the amenities seem to be appropriate for this whole area? And then, if there might be any thoughts or ideas as far as location or orientation of those amenities, and then we, as staff can take those comments and work with Phil to make some revisions if needed, and then come back to the Park Commission for final thoughts. So real, kind of a big, wide stroke kind of discussion. And with that, I guess I'd throw it to you, Phil, and you can talk about it however you'd like to.
Good evening. As Scott mentioned, we've been working on putting the detailed park plan together. Smart code is a little bit different than Euclidean zoning, where we're expected to create a park plan based on certain amenities that are required for different parts of the neighborhood. And so there's a guide that's in part of Smart Code that details those, and you select from a variety of different park uses depending upon where the park is located in the neighborhood, and so that's basically what we did in going through and selecting the types of things to include in this park plan that you see here. And it was really important to be able to also acknowledge the fact that there's a bike path that runs through this neighborhood entirely, and you will see and we will experience people that'll be traveling through this neighborhood from the west side of Fitchburg all the way through Terravesa, to Larson Road, all the way back down to the Capital City Bike Trails. So the larger park at the bottom, the 5-acre park, does have bike repair, way to fill up tires along with the restroom and so on. So we've tried to think a little bit further along than we typically would and just say, well, here's the land, do what you want. I think we've tried to schedule things here that will reflect what we're trying to do in this neighborhood. So based on all of that and the fact that there's different amenities that were required in a neighborhood like this, the park that's on the bottom, it's down here. This is the main active park is here. If you look at the second page, it does show a detailed plan of proposed uses. Really, we're not interested in creating any tennis courts, but almost as I really didn't care that much about basketball courts, but I think that it's it wasn't a real large area of impervious surface, so you'll see that there is a half basketball court there. Of course, the large area for a lot of field games and so on, whether soccer, and hopefully even some winter skating in that area as well. And you can see we need obviously playground equipment in the northwest corner of this park, along with some parking, restroom, and so on, and the bottom along the bike trail to have the bike repair, air pumping station, that type of thing. So I think it's from this particular location, it's a pretty straightforward use of the space. It does fulfill the amenities required in Smart Code. The other park area would be, and as let me just digress just a second here. I don't know if you've been over there or not, but this is really the first phase where you see a lot of these lots that are narrower. And there's homes that are being built in here and all the way up here. And this is gonna be changing a lot in the next 12 months. There's a lot of activity. The school is being built up here. I was in the school a couple weeks ago. It's amazing. It really is amazing. That'll be done in September. There's a child care facility right here that's under construction. That'll be done in June, I believe. So there are other buildings that are planned for this inner core, the T5 area of Smart Code. So this park down here would be the first park that I believe should be developed, since this will be the first and probably the second phase of this neighborhood to be done. This being the first phase and so much activity, I'm contemplating doing this second phase in here, maybe even this summer rather than next 2021. So Corey, you'll know where to go next summer. Watching what goes on out here. So it obviously there's going to be a fair amount of people in this area, and so we'd like to get this particular park under construction. The second active park is over here after phase 2. The phase 3 and phase 4 are over here, and this park would serve this more local residents. So in that particular park along Larson Road, it includes, again, very similar amenities that are over on the 5-acre park. Really, the only thing that's in there is a open green space, but probably not the size of there is on the other one. But it could, again, be a winter skating rink and soccer field in the summer, skating in the winter. So I think we've got a very efficient park space plan. Again, fulfilling what is not only required, but I think a little bit beyond that. One of the other key components of our plan is to create an urban farm as part of the parkland that's been dedicated. And this area down here has been farmed up until about two and a half years ago by the Mung families. And we wanted to bring that back, whether it would be the Mung families or another nonprofit or another group of people, to create food production on this 20 acres. There are various groups out there that would have a strong interest in farming part of it, maybe an acre, maybe 2 acres. We'd like to leave part of it open for residents that could use it, whether they live in Terravessa or not. And then I think there would be at least half of it would be utilized by a larger nonprofit, whether Groundswell or the Monk families or other food producers that would generate production for farmers market in this neighborhood. Or if they wanted to take it to Dane County Farmers Market, that would be up to them. But we would certainly have a consumer base here. And once this is built out, there'll probably be close to 3,000 people living in Terravessa. So there'll certainly be a lot of customers for the produce that's created. So I've had various conversations with different people, and Scott and I have talked about it briefly. I know it's out of it's not really in the box, so to speak. There's certain legal and political things we need to discuss, but I think as part of the comp plan, this does follow the comp plan in creating gardens and urban farming. And this would be less park for the Parks or the Parks Department to manage, to mow, to burn. They could be managed in the way I would envision something like this happening is basically whether it's the HOA or our organization leasing it from the city for $1, and then we would be able to provide it to those organizations for no cost. And they would be able to benefit from being able to grow produce on this land. Now, the Mungs, I think, did pretty well on this property, on that acreage, and really it was very poor farmland. The whole 250 acres really was probably a B, maybe a C type ag land, because of years of leasing out the land for many years, and probably not being managed properly. So they did well with their activity, and I think now that that entire area has been mined, because that was some of the best soil that we had on site for infrastructure. So we're replacing it now with better soil that was there, and we'll top it with black soil, black dirt, so that we can provide a better option, better situation for farming activity. So I know it's a larger issue but I wanted to mention that tonight because I think it's an important part of the sustainability of this neighborhood. We're going to great lengths with a lot of environmental amenities here, whether it's restoring this wetland, which will become a recreational feature in itself. The way it's being recreated with pollinator. In fact, a lot of the plants have been planted as soon as the ground froze. They were able to do a lot of the seeds spreading. And there's a lot more work to be done down there, but a lot of the biocells that will take the water on as stormwater. There's no stormwater ponds in this neighborhood. So as water is drained to these biocells, it will slowly get into the wetland and be treated properly before it gets there. Corey, you can chime in anytime you want. You were out there so much for the city. But I think what we're doing is we're creating a neighborhood, and it's not to talk about the neighborhood in general, but we're doing things that I think that this garden and this farming approach is a very important amenity and a very important addition to what our efforts are with this project and this community as it matures. So that's kind of the Reader's Digest. I have.
Maybe Phil, just one other, and really as the Park Commission, as you view this whole parcel, it's kind of one small community, if you would. So the diversity of the park opportunities and assets there are important, and certainly within our park and open space plan, there's the 3 S's that we call for is sociable, solitude, which is nature, and seams, which is, transportation and moving through. So what Phil has really done is he's taken all of those things to heart and is really trying to create a small city, if you would, but from a park perspective, a very diverse park system. So we appreciate that.
There are parcels in this neighborhood that will continue to be owned by the HOA and be maintained by the HOA. That I think will be a benefit to everyone living there. But I think the park system itself and with the bike path, it really connects very well. This is a prototype, an idea for a shelter that I'm very interested in pursuing. I think if it's positioned correctly in the large park, we can certainly add solar to this shelter. And I think it's very attractive, and again, I think it reflects the style, the mission of what we're trying to do with the type of architecture that's there. So this is just one example, I guess. It's not the only one, but it really is one that I gravitated towards, that I think would be a very nice feature to this 5-acre park.
Is this what you're showing in that first part?
Yeah.
Okay, were you showing a couple of shelters in there?
Yep.
Oh, okay.
And I don't know what the rules of thumb are for size. I'm mainly looking at the architectural style of it.
With the roof pitches on here, is this meant to be oriented in a certain way, like towards the sun on a?
Yeah, it would be oriented properly to face the south.
So which, like, would this be to the south, or what?
Well, it could be either one. Probably the one on the top, but it could be either one, sure.
I just wanted to mention, and we have another agenda item later called the Barn Swallow Update, and dealing with an older shelter where the open ledges that are shown here load up with barn swallows, and the neighbors complain because they defecate on the
Yeah, that's a
picnic
good point.
tables.
Yeah.
So we're working on that too, and just something to consider,
Okay.
that I think it's very pretty, but you don't know what you're gonna end up with, especially with the nice natural area there. It's good that they're going to like being there, those type of birds, because they'll cut down on your mosquitoes. So we are really talking about in another area, creating a structure just for the barn
Oh.
swallows.
Well, there's,
And then retrofitting the shelter to keep them out of there.
okay. Well, I would be open to anything, any ideas, and perhaps a barn swallow house or shelter could be put into the wetland a ways. And better, a better house.
Yes,
Be located where the food is.
Yeah.
right over
Yeah,
the food
right
source.
over there. Yeah.
So I guess the question might be, if we start in that, just to maybe get into the details a little bit, the southern neighborhood park there, is there anything from the park commission that sticks out to you? I think certainly too, the location of amenities would also, depending on water and all of those kinds of things, maybe move around a little bit. But the question is, the amenities that Phil has got selected and chosen for this area, do you think that those are appropriate and what you're looking for? I know one question.
Let me just mention, water and sewer's right in the street right here.
So then it'd be
And as well as along this street here, so
See, and I'm even thinking just where the shelter may be at a different location and the playground, it just might be the idea of orientation a little bit differently. And one question I did have is the parking lot. Do you envision that there's gonna be, a need for a parking lot, Phil?
well, I would prefer not. I guess we assume that there needed to be one on there. There could be, there's a soccer field here. There could be kids that are coming from other neighborhoods to play soccer there, but there's street parking.
Yeah.
All the
See,
streets can take parking, so.
And I guess my thought would be that, it really isn't going to be a destination park per se, where somebody outside of the neighborhood is going to get there. I would suspect generally the majority of the people that are gonna be there on the open play are gonna ride their bike or whatever it might be, so I might question why, and
You might, it's a good question, but you also have people that drive to a destination like this with their bikes and get on the bike and will ride downtown.
Yeah, that's right, I was gonna mention that.
Because it's really, from that location at the bottom, you're looking at probably 25 to 30 minutes at the most to get all the way to the square
yeah.
by bike.
Yeah. So it might be just
So there could be somebody coming from the
park and
south
ride, yeah.
and coming up here parking
That's a
and
good point.
jumping on the bike.
Also, since there's residence properties to the west and to the north, the more that there's street parking, the residences right around there may object to that, of people parking in front of their house or taking up essentially their street parking. So a parking lot that is off-street in the park might be keep them happier.
Well, and unfortunately, you have rules regarding street frontage on parks, and there's plenty of street frontage.
Yeah, we
Yeah,
got,
there's.
The park.
Depends how many.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but you're right, I
people
mean,
show up.
people like to have the streets empty.
I have a question about the location of the playground, which I read is a younger person's area where there's slides and swings, putting it on the corner of Spinach and Freese Drive.
Per se.
Yeah. Why put it right on the street? Why isn't it set back? If the ball gets away or if somebody starts to run, they're right in the street. I don't understand why that is a good idea.
See, and I think those are some of the things that we can kind of work on to reorientate where these things are. Because I would agree that, you know, you might want to have that more in the middle kind of thing. And
If it was right on the corner, then it might be something like let's say a decorative fence, not a chain link fence, but maybe a split rail or something or other. I think
just to
those
keep
is
the kids
key.
from sneaking out.
Yeah,
of
keep the
there,
little kids from running off in several different directions.
Yeah, and I agree that there are ways you can create a barrier or a boundary. The topography looks as if, well, we don't have any topo. It looks like as if.
It's flat.
It's pretty
It's
flat.
Yeah, it's very
Well,
flat.
but you could create a little berm around the edge,
sure.
which would discourage people to, just run out onto the street.
I think it's, part of it is also parents of young children want to have complete visibility. And hiding or moving this off of a very visible spot can also create a problem. I'm not disagreeing with you. I think it could be,
I'm talking about a 20-foot buffer or something like that.
well, again, wherever you want to put the playground is fine, but I mean, there are people that might feel differently about having it back in the park towards the corner. They would rather have it more visible. Just, it depends upon who you ask.
And again, I also too, with the process will be a public process where we'll kind of come up with something and then we'll reach out to the neighbors that are there.
And that's fine, but frankly, I would like to see this built before then, because you're not gonna have that many people here in the next year. And we wanna pay the fees so we can get it built. So I think we know what is gonna go in here because it's subscribed for or prescribed for by Smart Code. So I don't wanna, I really would prefer now waiting until there's 50 or 60 homes in here.
I just wanted to comment again about the parking lot idea. I am more leaning, my opinion would be to not have a parking lot inside the park and just utilize street parking. And then with the amount of young families that are going to be coming there, attracted, especially because of the school, I would see a reason why the neighbors would enjoy a full court, basketball court. That's a lot of kids. And having been a parent of a few, I just have seen lots of kids enjoy, third and fourth graders playing full court basketball and feeling like the Badgers or the Bullets.
I think, from what I'm told and what I observe, the most popular amenity in any park is actually the bike and pedestrian paths.
Sure.
Those are what's used the most.
Mhm.
Tennis courts sit empty, basketball courts sit empty, soccer fields sit empty until soccer season starts for the kids. But a lot of these amenities that are put in are not utilized. And
But in an area like this, where you have your, very small lots, the more affordable, and how many kids are we expecting? I would be really, it's a generation ago, but I'd be surprised that there aren't groups of kids that would want to play basketball in that way.
What I looked at for the basketball court there, it looks like, as drawn, it's oriented where that is one stop up there, and it looks like there's room to the south of it to maybe add on the other half of it later on. I would like that space reserved for expanding it to full court at least.
Well, or if you're not putting, if the group agrees later, if everyone agrees later to not put on-site parking, then you've got more leeway as far as the amount of blacktop that's
Yeah.
placed over the green space.
there's less impervious surface
Yeah.
in the parking lot. I agree.
Yeah, I kind of agree with the parking. It's a neighborhood park. I'd rather see it being utilized more for park area. And I get your park and ride concept, but I still think that could be done, perhaps in a different area, but, I still think it could be done. I had some questions though along that, what's the name of that street along the marsh there, curves? just north of that park. Is
Yeah.
that, I'm assuming that's developable, Leon, is that intended for
Are you
houses?
talking about it here, Mark?
Yeah, is that
Yeah.
intended for, what's
Houses.
intended in that area?
Houses.
Is
Houses.
it
Yeah.
is it mixed use, multi?
No, these are all
story?
single-family homes in here. There might be some two flats,
Okay.
but the multifamily the condos are being built in here, and then there'll be other multifamily up in here.
Mm.
Are these
My
single
thinking
family?
on some of those trail areas, though, because they're,
Yeah.
if they're not really destination type trails, perhaps it could be more curved linear or something that might be more interesting with the topography, but, you know, I don't know what the topography's like, because I haven't been able to
Yeah.
visualize it out there, but, you
Is
know, it's
it-
just a thought, but, you know,
You mean to go,
yeah, you know, not just straight, you know, but there's some other opportunities to, you know,
there's a lift station right here. And I don't think,
there may
I
be
don't think-
limitations
Yeah.
that I'm not aware of, I don't know, but it's just a thought.
but it's probably not as exactly straight as it shows on this piece of paper either, but it does not wind around.
Right.
It just doesn't.
The other was that, in the playground, you had noted some water fountain and benches, which I like that idea. But, you know, I like the idea of public art. I like the idea of it being, interactive though, a lot like, and I'm thinking of Millennium Park in Chicago, you know, that's kind of on a big scale, but I mean, a lot of the art is there, but it's, you see a lot of people there or gathering around it and, you know, enjoying the water and that sort of thing, and that, you know, on a small scale, you know, perhaps something like that could be easily incorporated since you already have play equipment that, you know, kids really love that stuff.
Marcus, this has been on our, not in this formal park plan, but it's been on our menu as well. And there's a local artist here in Fitchburg I've been talking to about doing some glass work in this neighborhood. And specifically, not necessarily in the active park, but in here to have, and then have benches in this area. Because I think there's the need for some meditative type of workspace where there's not all activity going on all the time. That it can be a place that you can pull over and just walk out, and this is gonna be quite a wetland when it's done. And I think it's gonna be a peaceful place.
Are there detention areas in there or?
Yeah, well, the water, it comes down with the storm sewer. And we'll pond in these biocells,
Okay.
and we'll filter. Corey, I think we will filter into the wetland.
Okay.
There's ways of the water being able to get through. These are berms that are in here.
But like a grass trail
Oh,
system
yeah.
could be developed
Absolutely,
easily.
yeah. And I think there could be benches that are interspersed in there
Yeah, I agree.
that are just out of the way. And we've got some of those elsewhere. Here's an outlot right here, for instance. Because in our smart code, these lots can only be 180 feet wide. So we had some leftover remnant spots.
Mhm.
So on this one, I'll probably have a bench and a little library, you know, one of the little libraries. And we've got a couple of other little spots that I'd like to do that in, and there's some HOA land here too. So some just, that are not quote-unquote parks, that are rest areas, that people can just chill.
Yeah, it's, I agree.
I have a question about the bike path that's down by the playground, up at the entrance at Lacey Road. You've made a conscious effort to align the
Lacey?
park. Yeah,
Yeah.
the bike path aligns straight across.
Yes.
Okay, but when you come down to this other location, it doesn't.
Right.
What's going on
Well, I really can't speak to that, or how they designed it this way.
there? Well,
This must have been through engineering.
I'm an architect, I ride a bike. That is, I think, problematic, and it doesn't strike me as something that I want to.
I don't think this is in yet, is it, Corey? The path across, I don't think I know. But a lot of the bike paths in.
No, I know,
But I'm just asking.
but I'm just saying, when you get on a bike, you want to keep going.
I understand that.
And you've made a conscious effort there at Lacey Road, but at this other area, it doesn't, and I can't quite understand why. That wouldn't be a good idea, that's all.
Well, and if you're in the park at the shelter and wanting to walk across somewhere else, then you're walking across bike traffic.
Yeah, I would echo what Sue is saying, that if you have your pavilions, which look interesting and people are picnicking and little kids are running around, the next thing they're doing is they're running across the bike path where somebody is riding. So I think there's an opportunity to adjust it. I would echo what Mark said. Many bike paths, the one that's the Capital City Trail goes through the city, has a lot of contour, has a lot of shape to it. It's a lot of visual variety. And if this land is pretty flat and it'll take a long time for the landscape to develop, having a little bit of a curve to it or something that breaks it up. We don't have a regular grid here like on a real urban street. Yes, MM is a straight line, but I don't know. And again, maybe you let's not talk about something that's already been done.
Well, I don't believe I know the path has been constructed way to the west, but where the new park is, I don't believe that's
I don't
been
think
constructed.
I don't think it's
that's been
installed.
constructed yet.
And it makes no difference to me.
Yeah, we could probably,
Unless there's some limitations for the reason why they put it where they did. I'd have to check into that. But other than that,
but
I'm
that's a
all in
good,
favor of having a direct access across the street,
yeah,
that's
that's
for
a good
sure.
comment.
What is, go ahead.
No,
It's a change of subject.
Yeah, no, that's-
Okay. Between the community garden and the park we're discussing is outlot 34. That
Mhm.
white block. What is going to be there?
Right here?
It says neighborhood park outlot
Here?
30. Yeah, yes.
It's a house.
somebody else's, it's
someone lives
not
there.
part of your
The-
property.
Right.
The text is pointing up to the left.
Oh,
of the building.
okay. I drew my own scribbles and I didn't notice that I'd
Yeah.
scribbled over that. Okay.
I would like to just comment here quickly on the community garden. I think it's an excellent idea. I applaud you for trying to incorporate something that actually related to some prior use and the idea of that. I think, however, practically, I'm not sure where people park their cars, how they access it. You would have some little structure. If you go to Eagle Heights and you look at the gardens that they have there needs to be something to support a good community garden and not just the land that's available. And you're probably well aware of that. But I think that there's some, consideration for that.
I agree, David. I think parking has been discussed and would be placed on there. I would like, also to, over time, to find a way to do year-round farming on this and have structure. And be thinking about that in the beginning so we can find a place for a building to be able to incorporate that. So that has to be part of the equation as well.
Yeah, have you talked with the university in terms of their community gardens
Not
programs in
yet.
agriculture? I
Not
think
yet.
you might find a receptive audience that
Great,
would have
thank you.
some ideas.
I
Will there
believe,
be water, public water extended into that area or no?
Not yet. There's not anything planned yet, but there's no reason why it couldn't be. Now, those that had farmed there before did not have running water.
Yeah,
And
I
it's,
kind of assumed that, I don't know how necessary it is really, but
it seemed to work, but I think there's other ways to do it as well. I've thought about, how water could be pumped perhaps from the stormwater that ends up in the biocells in the wetland area. Depends upon how much rain is coming in. But as most farmers, you depend on the weather, and those that were farming there before seem to do okay.
I sent a link to Claudia Guy, but it does fit into this subject now because you just mentioned what the link was. It was is a community garden in the city of Milwaukee, and they diverted all their stormwater runoff into their own area and used a certain type of biocell and have a solar pump, and that brings up the water for their community gardens. So it seems like a very nice idea. Because I don't, a farmer may not, he takes the risk, he or she
Yeah.
takes the risk that they're gonna have a drought year, but people who are doing individual little plots, whether it's alone or with children, would prefer water on site versus plastic gallon jugs in the
Yeah,
trunk of their
I
car.
agree.
Probably.
I agree, and I think there's ways to do that with some of the runoff.
Okay.
I mean, stormwater is, it's been a major part of this whole plan and dealing with it. We've all watched it, so that would be another ingredient, another way to manage it, to make it useful.
If the neighborhood would decide to have a farmer's market, where would you envision that to be?
It would go right here in the little civic plaza right here, that
little town
square. Yep. And it's also an HOA property.
So that's kind of a town square?
Gathering, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Shall we go up to the,
Well, I want to ask about the community garden also.
Mm-hmm.
I think directly across on the south side of Goodwin Park Road is another community garden.
Yes.
Groundswell
Groundswell.
bought the Paisley
Yep.
farm.
Yep.
So do they park on the street, or do they have any parking lot?
I think they are parking on the street, but also I think they put some bark in to kind of create a little parking area, not very far off the road.
Mhm.
But they really haven't been totally into that whole farming effort yet, probably this year. But they're not, I don't think they're creating anything formal like asphalt.
Yeah. Well, I'm wondering if they have access on the south side of the road into something or other, about if the access into your community garden, their outlot 37, would also be along Goodland Park. I don't know if they could, well, they're kind of landlocked from getting from Radicchio through the playground.
Well, you wouldn't
park
be able
there.
to get, you wouldn't be able to get
Okay,
there
'cause
from
it's
here.
through
You'd have to come off of
wetland
Goodland Park
area.
Road.
Okay, off
Yeah.
Goodland. So are you saying that there might be some kind of parking lot or off-street into your community garden area?
Well, I think, I've seen a plan that showed a small parking lot on there, and realizing, well, I guess at this point, we're at that, we'll get to that stage, okay, what are we gonna need? What arrangement do we have with a farming group, and what are their needs gonna be? And then I think we should plan it, rather than saying, okay, this is what we're gonna do. So but recognizing the fact that there probably will have to be some parking facility. What that's made of, I really don't know right now.
Especially if it's meant to be a lot of small plots, 20 by 20 and a whole bunch of them, then a lot of people are gonna
Yeah,
show up.
and I'm not sure how successful that's going to be. I think though, from a public standpoint, we're gonna have to offer that and see where it goes over a few year period. If it doesn't work, perhaps we can expand the group that's largest to take on more land.
And next to the playground area in the corner there, it says plaza space, kiosk, water fountain, benches, bike parking, but there's no kind of a shelter there. You've got two shelters down in the south end, but no shelter for, let's say, like a group event next to the playground where the, picnic and a barbecue or whatever grilling can be going on in a shelter, and then the kids are over in this corner parking lot at the same time. I see that going on in other parks. There'll be a party and the kids will be over in the playground. But, picnic tables and the grilling is going on at a shelter.
Yeah, again, it's, depends upon how extensive the shelters want to be. This is a start.
we're just kind of the general idea and amenities, and we're getting good comments here, so I think we'll be able to make some adjustments, that's for sure. Shall we move to the northern neighborhood? Is there any thoughts or comments regarding that?
Western. Orient this the right way.
In the same way as the
I'm sorry, we're both.
In the same way that the basketball court looked like there was room to expand it in the southern one, I think I would like to see the basketball court oriented and reserve some space for adding another half if it becomes really popular. I see that in Swan Creek, for example, Western Hills, those are full court, and it isn't so much one group back and forth between the baskets, but one group would be at one basket and a whole different group, like big kids over here, little kids, or even one or two person at the other basket at the same time, rather than just as, this is a one person, one group at a time when it's a half court.
I think it's certainly possible to at least reserve the space for it. Maybe we eliminate one of the volleyball courts. You really, I mean, you can really overkill, I think, on things that are not necessarily that popular.
Well, and even the idea of this is certainly, you know, does this neighborhood need 2 basketball courts? You know, maybe just 1 basketball court between the 2 would be enough.
Well, keep in mind, it's quite a distance.
You know.
I mean, parents
Well, you've got two-
don't even let their kids walk 2 blocks anymore, so.
They should be jogging down there. Well, and you really have kind of two different areas of residential development. So.
Yeah, it's just the distance, and that's part of the smart code that required the 2 parks to be put in here, and why we couldn't really have a central park.
I just see basketball, tennis.
No tennis.
Well,
No
okay,
tennis.
I'm making an observation in other parks that I see around me and that I go by and such, I see basketball and tennis as being quite popular.
I don't know where, honestly. I mean,
Well,
McKee Farms
that's what I
Park-
see, so.
McKee Farms Park, I think,
Sure.
there's clubs that play there, there's schools that go down there and practice.
And those 6 courts in McKee
But
are
in Swan
often
Creek,
filled.
we pay for all those, and they're seldom used over there. And I mean, I think that this is within a bike ride at Swan Creek. That intersection of MM and Lacey Road is going to be fully signalized this summer. So it won't be an issue getting across MM for people. If they want to go play basketball, they can drive, or tennis, they can drive over to Swan Creek or McGaw Park. I mean, there's plenty of places to play tennis. Someone said, well, why don't you put some pickleball courts in? I mean, I think you should,
We're working on pickleball courts in McGaw.
are you redesigning or repainting stripes on tennis courts?
Oh, we do, yeah.
Yeah. You just can, again, you're creating such more hard surface that I think we're trying to avoid as much as we can, practically.
So the volleyball would be soft, sand, or?
Yeah, I think that's how they would be designed, yeah.
Is there any opportunity to get a, I don't know, gazebo or small shelter in that area?
I
that's,
think so.
You know, or, you know, when parents sit around the play equipment, you know, gets kind of hot sometimes, and even some small,
Yeah, just,
I'm not sure what they call them, but you know, they're just small shelter type areas that
shade structure.
cover maybe a few benches and things like that, that kind of gets the sun off your back.
I agree. I think, you know, even like we did down in, by the water,
Splash pad.
the splash pad.
Right.
Those umbrella
Yeah, exactly.
structures.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're attractive, they're not overdone,
Right.
and they can get you out of the sun.
Right. Mhm.
We'll add, yeah.
The questions I have, one question is about, next to the playground area, there's, the residential area notches up into the park. Why was this not just a straight line over? I realize it would make the parkland percentage a little larger, but what you have at the very top, and it's even cut off here on the map, up there it shows this little triangle, it's supposedly parkland that is next to those retention ponds, and nobody's gonna use that for parkland.
No, I agree with you. It's just open space. It's along the bike trail.
But what about this area here? Is this cut and dried, that this is residential, or can we square that off and have the park be just that much bigger?
Well, I guess you can look at this plan and if this covers what we're supposed to do, or if it doesn't cover enough, we'll take a
Yeah.
look at it.
The other comment in general is just hoping the idea is that we use native trees and plantings in these areas. And then this playground in particular, I noticed the trees, which are presumably for shade, are on the east and north sides of the park, where it really, or playground area, and where you really want shade is on the south and the hot western afternoon sun. So you absolutely reverse where the trees are in relation to the blacktop, or playground, whether it's chips or blacktop or whatever.
You can spot those wherever you want
Right,
to spot them.
okay.
Yeah, we can certainly do
We've,
that.
there's about 110 acres of open space in parkland here. So you got a lot of room to use your imagination.
There might be a similar concern about that little playground there in the northern park being close to Romaine. At least Romaine, though, is a lesser internal residential road as opposed to in the southern park there. Frizzy, you call it?
Per se.
Frizzy looks like a main road. It's wider and it comes right off of Goodland Park.
It's a boulevard. It's a boulevard.
A boulevard.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which
In
one's,
fact, there's,
which one's the
Crusade.
boulevard?
per se, these are both, Lacey Road as well as per se are both boulevards. They have
Okay.
full infiltration medians.
I have a question about something. I know it's a quick shift away, but we were talking about bike trails where it goes from MM, the bike trail goes through the little prairie area over to the school grounds.
Yes, right here?
And that's an area where the path's already installed?
Yes.
I just question it, how does one come up with that particular location for the path? It sort of seems to cut everything right in half in the
We'll have to
prairie.
ask Public Works about
Okay.
that.
I will.
And
Thanks.
this path stops at the top of the hill. I think it's gonna be continued at some point in time. It'll have to go across private property.
That's where the water comes across, I think, that's,
Yeah, from this side?
yeah. Well, and going.
That water.
Going to the east to the school from MM,
I
that's
think,
what.
I don't have, this is kind of a nice little trail, actually.
Mhm.
Because the kids that are going to school, they want to take the path and get home that way rather than ride on the streets, they can.
Oh, yeah, it's
So-
just the very section that goes through the prairie. I just wondered, that little section.
And to weave it through there's 5 legacy oaks in there.
That's nice. And I have one other question about what are these green parcels that lead from this area down into
Those
the
are,
park?
those are just additional little open spaces that are owned by the HOA. We maintain.
So, okay, all right. I didn't know if it was gonna be future path of some sort or,
And this whole area, from here all the way to the top has all been preliminary platted.
right,
So as we get a little bit more detail on all of this, some of these things can change, not to a great extent, but we wanted to have some open vistas and
Line of
pathways to walk. And it's kind of hard to do that when we got all these streets, but it does, I think it does provide a little bit more pleasant experience to be able to get down to the park. I'm sure these will have, bike access, probably bike path moves through one.
I do have one more comment. There's some, looks like crosswalks between the blocks on the curb part.
Here?
Get closer to the park and the marsh area. There's a crosswalk there, yeah, and then some down farther.
Or here?
Yeah, it would seem that they should extend to the wetland or something so that, in my opinion, the more the better.
Well,
You know,
that-
because I lived in a neighborhood where we had like one crosswalk to the park and it's like everybody cut through everybody's yard anyway. Just kids do. They take the
Yeah.
shortest route.
I'm not sure, Mark, offhand, if those are not alleyway.
But, you have some wider ones, and I'm not even suggesting that, I'm just, if there's an opportunity for just a sidewalk connection, it would seem appropriate to put as many as you could, wherever there's a street ending or where it makes sense, I guess. And you have some, it's just, and it's some large ones which are very nice. I'm just suggesting more small ones.
Yeah, I'd have to look at how wide those are.
Just an offer of connection, that's all.
All of these narrow pathways, mid-block, are they alleys? Do you have a lot of alleys through here?
In here?
Throughout, well,
These are all alleys.
yeah, well, I'm seeing especially, well, just all over.
Yeah. Well, most of this is alley fed. Rear entry garage.
Uh-huh.
There are
And
some
up
lots that are front.
Up to a little higher and to the right, that whole big area looks like there's lots of alleyways
There are, I mean,
mid-block.
There's
Okay.
a huge amount of alleys here.
Uh-huh, okay. I want to point something out too that I'm noticing. It's easier to just point to it. So, does that mean that, like, this is an alley that goes behind these?
It is.
Or behind them?
Correct.
Okay. I personally like how this is kind of out in the middle through this area. It's somewhere that you can get to by the bike or walking that you wouldn't just normally be along the street. And I'm noticing this bike path right here is kind of spaced in this area. It's not right up against the back of these residences, and it's not right up against
Right.
these already private houses here. So there's buffer on each side. But this right here, we had asked about this a little bit before. There's no buffer between this and these, and I think that's a conflict. Like here, let's see, maybe somewhat here, but especially here,
So there's a few things.
1
about
foot beyond
Patrick.
the property is a bike path?
So, on this side, it's all stormwater. So you quickly go from the back of these lots to the path to stormwater. There isn't a lot of space there. This route is actually also the force main from the lift station. It follows this path. So this path,
Like right under?
yes, this path will also serve kind of double duty as the utilities access to get to and maintain that force main in the lift station.
Okay.
So while this looks pretty straight, when you go out there, there's so much variability in the topography and the shape of the land out here that you're gonna go along a nice path and you're gonna be looking off into the wetland area that will just be beautiful. So,
Okay, yeah, I would do whatever you can to, let's say screening or something or other, so that people going along the bike path here don't feel like they're infringing right into the backyards of these properties, and that, in the same way that these owners right here aren't, seeing these annoying people riding right behind their properties. So anything you can do along there, even if they've got 1 foot to work with or so, which looks like it's right up against their property line, give them some buffer or screening or something or other. Assuming that it can't be moved farther.
keep
away.
in mind, all of these little things here are alleys, which those
Yeah.
are 22 feet wide. So, I mean,
Right, that's
a
what I
little
look at.
line
All
on this
these.
is actually a lot wider than it looks too.
That's what I've seen, is all of these in between here apparently are alleys.
Yep. Yep.
I think the trail exists, there's also an awareness to property owners that this is gonna be there. I mean,
Buy half the trail.
It's not gonna be a surprise, it's,
I think if you want to live by a bike trail, it'd be easy to get on and head out. You get on it real quick. And actually, it's one of the reasons why people will live here, the access to the trail.
okay.
All right, any other thoughts or comments for the good of the order? I think they'll gave us some good information here, Phil, so we can
The
continue on with this.
open field area is noted as open recreational field as well as ice skating rink. Does that mean that it's a little bit depressed in there to hold water in?
Not yet. I mean, it would be that's the intent, is to create so it can be used at some point. I mean, you don't necessarily have to berm all the way around to create a skating rink. I mean, you see them all over. People flood their backyard so. I don't know that it'll be a formalized rink. I think it would depend some on the people that are living there and say, we'd like to maybe have a better skating rink.
I think the
Who
winter
knows?
activities, could be good,
So we'll be seeing this again when
Oh,
it
yeah.
becomes more,
Well, I think, like I said, I'd like to see the improvements started. Why not? I mean, I think that, like I said, the smart code pretty much prescribes what's required. If there's some movement around of the bike paths, of the shelter, of the playground equipment, I think staff could probably take this and say, we'd rather have this here. I'm fine with it. I would just like to see these types of improvements put in here, because I'm trying to follow smart code. And it's not always the easiest thing to do, as you can imagine.
Noted.
So, if perhaps staff could take it from here and place things where you like, and the trees as well, and have the trees planted in the right spot. They're gonna tell us what trees they wanna plant anyway. We're required to make the park improvement fees. So,
I'm good with that, if Scott wants to do
does that
that.
make sense?
Yeah, we'll bring
And
it
then
back.
hopefully we can get started on it this summer. Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks
a lot,
very much for
Phil.
your time. Sorry to take so much.
Likewise, Phil. Perfect. Yeah, without any further ado, I'm gonna let Corey and Claudia drive this next project. Maybe just as a prelude to the discussion, they've been meeting with the Burn Park neighbors. So one of the things that they are proposing to do is to, use some of the fill from, or some of the drubbing out material to regrade the park. And certainly, from my perspective, I'm going, okay, are the neighbors okay with this idea? And they appear to be okay. So from the park perspective, let's work in partnership and save money and get her done. As long as the neighborhood's on board with it, I'm good with it. So.
Okay, so my name is Claudia Guy. I'm the stormwater engineer for the city of Fitchburg, and this is Corey Horton with Aria Smith. We've been working on this burn pond retrofit project. Just to give you a little bit of background, this has actually been in the works since 2017, so well before I came to the city, and actually Corey worked on it when he was the director of public works. Last year when I worked on this project, basically what we found is that with the budget that we had, we were not able to accomplish terribly much, and the bids were coming back much higher than we expected. So this winter, we went and we got additional funding. We applied for a grant from Dane County, and they were able to give us quite a bit more money. We're excited about that. Had a meeting last week to talk to the neighborhood and talk to them about the new plan, which Corey will go into the details of that. But they seemed very excited about it, especially in comparison to what we were proposing last year. And with that, just a quick agenda here, background information, the proposed design, and the timeline. So to give you an idea of the burn pond drainage area, it's right in this area over here is Burn Park, and this is where Burn Pond is located. It's a dry pond, and it's a dry pond because in 1998, when this neighborhood was platted, there were only requirements for detention. There weren't any water quality requirements, so really the permanent pool that you see in a wet pond is for the water quality aspect. Anyway, so the purpose of this project is to take this dry pond and retrofit it so we can do more with the area than is currently being done. So this area is currently only providing stormwater detention, and we want to also provide infiltration, additional cleaning of the water, evapotranspiration, so we're reducing the amount of water that runs off-site, and then also adding native plants as well, which will help with the evapotranspiration aspect of it. Just a little bit of history. The Burnwood neighborhood was a private development that was platted in 1988 and built in the following years. Burn Park, as you can see, is on that parcel on the north side here, and that was dedicated to the public for park purposes. And this is the area where Burn Pond is located, and it was dedicated to the public for stormwater purposes.
What's that hatched area?
I don't know. Someone else asked that question, and I really don't know. It just shows up on It's just on the plat for some reason. I meant to look at the legend to see if I could figure that out, because this is just a snapshot of a larger document. But I'm not sure about that. And Corey's going to tell you a little bit more about the project, and we were thinking if we regrade part of the park here, we might be able to actually improve the park space because it's currently really, really flat and doesn't drain quite as well, and potentially save money for this project as well. So we felt it was really a win-win. And with that, I'll turn this over to Corey.
Thanks, Claudia. So like Claudia had mentioned, we're just trying to do more from a stormwater perspective in the same footprint that we have there. So we're trying to just improve that water quality, get more evapotranspiration, and capture trash and litter, and just improve things from a stormwater perspective. So what we're looking, I guess how we're looking to do that is within that existing footprint, we're going to basically put in 3 separate areas. The first area on the right side, which is towards the east, will be a dry forebay. So that will capture kind of more of the heavier sediment, the sands and things like that. It gives it a place to fall out where the city can come in and maintain and scoop and clean that out. The next section of the pond will be made into a native planted filter strip. So that is just a flat area with native grasses and flowers that will help to clean that stormwater, and it has a nice deep root system that will help to evapotranspire some of the water. And then finally, on the west side, there is a bioretention basin, and I'll go into a little bit more of the detail of that. But that is really what creates that extra earth volume that we need to get rid of, that extra material that we'll have from the project. So on the bottom of this slide, you can see kind of a cross-section of what that looks like through this pond. It's highest over on the right, and then it slopes towards the left, and then it goes out a pipe and discharges. So again, we're going to create kind of a little speed bump here to get that sediment to drop out in that forebay. Then it's going to go through that native vegetated filter strip, and then it goes into this bioretention basin. And I'll go into a little bit of the detail of how that works. So
On the previous slide, what does the cross section look like going perpendicular to this view?
right, so there's basically berms on 2 sides,
Okay,
and
okay.
it slopes down into the basin. Yep. So the current bottom of that entire stormwater basin, Claudia had mentioned, it's a dry basin, and it has a concrete channel in the bottom of it, which basically shoots most of the water straight through. And then the soils of the bottom of the basin are not very permeable. They're almost impermeable. So what this bioretention basin does and how it functions is we're going to take out some of those less permeable soils, backfill it with an engineered soil mix, so it's a mix of compost and sand. So it allows the water to be filtered, and it also allows the water to get down to higher capacity soils that can take more water. So we need to basically dig out roughly 10 feet of soil to get down to those highly permeable soils. So that 10 feet of material is what's getting generated from the project, and we either need to haul that to some other site to dispose of it, but then that's where Claudia said we're looking at this option of using that material beneficially to improve the park.
10 feet deep by what, full width of this?
Yes, it's like 10 feet by 90 feet or so.
Okay, so that's a lot.
Yep. Yeah, I want to say it was 2,200 cubic yards or so. So as I mentioned, we have kind of 2 options, and we're going to bid it both ways as well. So, sometimes you have a contractor bid a project that is working on another site where he needs that material, and he might see it beneficial to take it to that site versus not. So we're going to bid it both ways to kind of give ourselves the flexibility of, does this make sense to, try to keep that in the park, or does it make sense to just let the contractor dispose of it off-site?
In what way is it used? Is there a specific area of the park that needs this, or is it going just
We'll go into that in the
1/16 of an
next-
inch across the whole thing?
In the next slide here.
All right.
So this is, and it doesn't show up fantastically on here, but these orange lines on here are the contours. So that's the shape of the ground. The distance between each of these contours is a foot. So the closer they are, that means the steeper the slope is. When you have areas that are very far apart, like here, that means it's very, very, very flat. So the site currently, and there's a backstop right up here. So there's portions of this site which are fairly steep that are 2 to 3% down here. The problem is when you get into this area, you have places where the slope is less than 0.5% slope. And the problem that creates is when you have an area that isn't under-drained or no drain tiles, it creates pockets where water just doesn't drain off of the site. It doesn't have positive drainage. So these areas tend to hold water and become swampy, and then the grass doesn't grow as well.
That whole
Oak Park,
western,
and that's Oak Park.
that whole western half there from that, I see a bright orange line, contour line there, and everywhere west of there, yeah, the whole area, the dark area there, that's quite low in that park,
Right.
isn't it?
Yes.
What's the elevation compared to your bioretention and all of that area?
This is all actually quite a bit higher than this is out here.
Oh, it is
Yeah.
higher up there
Yes.
than in the bottom part?
Right. So, yeah, this,
And that's east though, correct? That's not west.
up here, so the basin, the park is north of the
Correct.
basin. Yep.
To the
Right.
left is west.
All right, got it.
So the next slide here will show kind of the grading that we're looking to do in the area that would be disturbed for filling. And as you can see, we've made a very uniform slope of 2.5%, which when you're looking at establishing a park or a field that you want to drain well, you want to aim between 2 and 3% slopes to get it to drain well. So we've basically taken areas that are 0.5% slope, filled them in, and uniformly provided, a good slope. We did cut off the grading a little bit up here because we didn't want to get into filling near the backstop and needing to, take the backstop out or changing that aspect of the site.
You typically remove the topsoil before you put that fill in?
Yes, so this would all be stripped of the topsoil. It would be filled, and then there would be topsoil replaced and then reseeded with turf grass.
And that whole center area, I think I only see 2 trees at the bottom part there.
Yeah,
so-
and we're gonna adjust the grading to
Yeah.
not disturb these. These are actually a little bit on the berm of where
Uh-huh.
the pond starts.
But what I'm looking at is out in the center area that you're proposing filling, there's no trees out there, so no trees are lost,
Right,
you're
yep.
filling this.
There are a couple deciduous trees up here, and we also, tied the grading in to avoid damaging or needing to take those trees down, so.
But this is only occurring in the
Essentially the grass field area.
lower area, okay.
What,
So right now, the field is relatively flat in parts. So I'm trying to think of the
It's a mix.
use of this particular green space. Right, when it's flat, you can use it for pickup soccer, baseball, whatever.
Mhm.
Right, you're putting in a grade across there, does that?
This is a 2.5% grade, which you can hardly even notice.
So that's what you designed fields to be
Yeah.
at.
Really?
The soccer
Good,
field you
good,
would want to be. So
Okay.
actually, just so, usually like 1% is the minimum that you would want for a paved surface to
Mhm.
make sure that that is draining properly. And then for a pervious surface like this, you'd want at least 2%. So that's a typical design.
Okay,
Mhm.
okay.
It's still very flat.
can you indicate where the park shelter is?
The park shelter is like right.
Way up
here,
there?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so this is kind of in that grass field
And
area
then
that's
this
open.
whole, yeah, and you may be getting to it, but do you have a construction start and end time at this point?
So we do have a
I'll
schedule here.
wait.
Next
When you
step in
get to-
timeline, you're
Okay.
feeding right into it.
Is this
Moving
the
right
park
along.
shelter right in here, I think, or somewhere right around here?
So as Claudia mentioned, we did have a meeting with the neighborhood to discuss the project and kind of what our goals were and what we were doing. We're here today to talk to you about, this potential idea of the grading within the park. We are pretty prepared to, with the plans, kind of both ways, to put this out to bid. We plan on, having this out to bid for roughly 3 weeks or so. And then, that would have to go to council to get the contract approved. And we're ultimately looking for, an early spring start for the work. So, we expect that the project would probably take, I don't know, I would guess maybe 3 to 4 months maybe. Obviously there's time to establish turf and vegetation that, takes a while to grow in, but everything is kind of set up to happen pretty quick. We have some grant dollars, as Claudia mentioned, that we want to make sure that we get this project completed and get those grant dollars allocated.
And just, again, tying it back to the other thing on our agenda, the barn swallow update, I was working with neighbors to address the problem of the barn swallows in the park shelter and found a volunteer group to build the new shelter. So I didn't end up getting on the mailing list about the meeting you just had, because so I'm sorry I missed it, but it's not too late for me to figure out because I just want to be able to coordinate down the road with where does this new structure go.
And sorry about that. You did
That's right.
email me and ask me. So in the past, I've been using a Word document to send out, a Word document that just has everyone's email list to send out
Yeah, I do.
the emails. But I was told I really should be using, we have, what's it called?
Well, you
There's
sign
something
up for the
people can
various
sign up-
agendas.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
so
Listserv.
List-
There- and there's a
Notify
notify
me.
me.
So-
Notify me.
So there's a notify me for
I can
this
do that, I
project.
just,
So-
yeah.
So I sent it to the notify me because I was told not to use
Oh,
my email list, so
okay.
sorry about that.
All right.
But
We'll
it
just-
has been recorded, so it's.
Yeah, that's good, and we'll just have to make sure we coordinate where this goes, so the birds have a place to explore this season.
Yeah, I think like you had mentioned before, putting this in an area, kind of maybe further away from the shelter,
Absolutely.
more towards native areas,
Mhm.
I think putting that closer towards this stormwater facility would probably be a good fit.
Right. Okay.
But like you said, timing of, you don't want to
Right,
put that
I'll-
in when they're gonna have equipment out there.
Well, I don't want to waste a lot of your time talking about it. I could send you something separately later, too, unless you want to hang around and hear what we talk about later today.
Okay, so that's pretty much what we had. We wanted to get your feedback and get any questions that you had and see if you're open to this or not.
In general, when you mentioned the current bio retention and all, I've been there, looked at it in the past, and you mentioned the cement channel down the middle. So is it basically the water rushes down the cement channel right now, and it is certainly not up to current standards for infiltration and everything? In other words, it's just not working the way that a modern system would work. So this takes out the cement channel
Yes,
probably,
that cement
and
channel
makes it
comes
so the
out.
water, instead of going down right down the center in cement, sheets out across the whole 90-foot width and flows down.
Correct.
Okay.
And I think one of the nicest things will be just kind of getting rid of all the weeds that are there and getting it established with native plants, and then get it on the maintenance plan to make sure that gets established well and just looks really nice.
So all the water from storm drains, channels and everything, storm culverts around in the whole Burnwood neighborhood, they all come together and they all come at that upper east
Yeah,
inlet?
so this area that's in blue, all of that ultimately drains, by
Uh-huh.
gravity, over land or, through storm sewers, and it all ultimately ends up, in the pond.
All directed into that
Mhm.
one corner there where this is.
Correct.
I'll just have a question about the overall geometry of the shape, and it seems quite unnatural.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess I would think that nature would not create something that's so symmetrical and straight. Is there any opportunity to make this a little fuzzier or a little more organic? And it's in relative terms. It's like you plant trees in a row. Well, that's what humans do,
Mhm.
but nature doesn't do that. So is there a way to make this a little more softer or a little more organic?
We have a pretty narrow rectangle that we're dealing with,
Yeah.
and you're absolutely right. If I was designing this from the get-go, I would design this to kind of meander back and forth. But given that we're kind of painted into a corner with the space that we have available, if we created a meandering channel, we want that bottom to be fairly flat, so we
Mhm.
get the water to spread out, like Patrick had mentioned, with the native vegetation. So if we made it meander, that kind of goes, to do that, we would need to raise up areas, which would decrease how much space that water has to spread out, and we would decrease how much water quality we would get. So, as much as it looks very hard-edged, I think, right now, we have a mowed basin with a concrete channel in the bottom of it. when we're done, we're gonna have native vegetation, flowers and things that are growing up much taller.
Sure. And could the native vegetation creep over onto the parkland, and therefore, nature doesn't know where the plat is or what the property lines are.
Mhm.
In other words, is this restricted because this parcel is part of stormwater and the other parcel is part of parkland?
I mean, that is something I think we could talk with Scott about. I mean, obviously, they require different maintenance. One, you're mowing with a turf mower. So, and the other, we're doing weeding and controlled burns and things like that. So, certainly I think that edge could be made, curvilinear and kind of, I'm not sure exactly how much space we have between that stormwater outlet and the park outlet, but we certainly could, provide some wiggle there to make it look more natural.
Yeah, and I think the natural land, again, somebody who's using that looks like a very big park area. There isn't a prescribed area for soccer or something? Are there soccer?
It's just an open field.
It's a big
Yeah.
open
So
space.
I'm just asking for something a little more natural, something that isn't quite so severe.
Sure.
And I guess one thing I want to add to that is when I've been out here, I've seen folks just walking around kind of the perimeter of the berm, and currently it's a pond with berms on all sides which form the pond, and folks kind of just walk around the perimeter of the pond like with their dogs. So I guess in my mind, we weren't going to put native vegetation on the berms. We were just going to keep that kind of turf, so it would be shorter and folks can walk on that still. But the native vegetation would be in the bottom, and it would, just be something to look at while you're walking.
It's a little late in the game, but we could have talked about extending the type of plantings you have into creating a little prairie section in this park directly adjacent to it, and reduce the amount of parkland that's being mowed. And I don't know if that really would have worked out as a feasible suggestion, but it's just never even, you're
Yeah.
done with your engineering plans and we are just hearing about.
Well, I mean,
That,
especially
right?
if this area, gets graded.
There's no reason we can't do something.
Well, that's right, yeah.
I mean,
That's
we'll
my
be
question.
taking-
If there is no reason why not, that's good to hear.
I mean, we would be taking that dirt from this location and it's going to come up here. So there will be places between these two that get disturbed that needs to get restored. And
Reseeded.
yes. And
Yes.
reseeding and restoring that with turf grass versus native vegetation is something I think we can discuss.
Good.
At the public meeting, did you hear any feedback as to how people wanted to continue to use it? Like, did they say that the berm and the ability to walk around the berm was important to them? Or I guess what feedback did you receive at that meeting?
We didn't really hear I didn't hear any feedback regarding
Okay.
that, but I like Claudia, I've gone out there too, and even in the snow, you just see tracks of people going right around that pond, almost like a walking track. But I think there is an option where you could have turf grass on the top of the berm, and then have some native essentially on both sides of the path.
I think that'd be good.
You could put a grass
Yeah.
path.
On the top of the berm, and then kind of have native vegetation on both sides.
How is that field used now? Is it, maybe this is
It's
a
not,
question.
that's, how is the field?
How's that field used? Long time ago,
It's not, does it?
it's just,
No,
it's just,
no
yeah,
organized, it's just kind of a neighborhood play area.
player, right, yeah.
Scott, are you looking for
Sure,
a vote on
please.
this?
Yeah.
Okay.
I like it. I think stormwater is definitely something that is a problem, and anything we can do, I think, is a positive change for a neighborhood.
It does look like that from that plat map, the other one, the black and white, that essentially this whole stormwater treatment area is kind of shoved to the southern end of this park. You've got that long rectangular to work with, and that's what you're given. It's nice to hear that people do walk around it. I've been there, walked around it too, I think, looking it over. But the main activity is in the whole rest of the park up there, the whole northern half. I think one comment, if this does come back to us for anything, none of the maps or pictures that we have here show the entire, let's say, satellite view of the park, and it might be useful for us orienting ourselves to see the whole thing.
The question I have, talking about the trail on top of the berm, the racetrack. If in the future, the idea is we're gonna reseed some other areas, perhaps with native seed, could you have an offshoot of the trail to go around that and come back?
Yeah, I think certainly they could, mow to a logical place where people in the park would tie into that.
Yeah, because I'm not being able to envision the berm, if it's possible to walk off the berm,
Yeah.
off into the park safely, and
Right.
then back to the top of it.
The berm is much higher on the west end, and then it kind of tapers out as you head east.
Mm-hmm.
So I think kind of from the middle of the lot to the east, there's a lot less of a drop off, so it's a lot easier to get onto the berm from that side. So I think that would be a more logical place to kind of put a spur off of if you were trying to provide a place for people to walk to.
Okay.
Would it be better to plant something like that once the foliage grows up and we can actually see it?
Yeah, I mean,
There's no need at this point to lay out a path.
But if you're gonna do native seed versus turf seed, and you get a rough idea of what, it's expensive to put the native seed down where you might later on cut it off. I'm not sure how much expense.
That area we
I understand
disturbed,
what
so
you're
we
saying.
can
Yeah.
do a 20-foot strip of stuff on one side of the walking path. That's more native prairie kind of.
yeah, I think what I'm hearing is it sounds like
Yeah.
you'd like to have that area for people to walk, and then have kind of, maybe like Scott said, a 20-foot buffer of the natives, so it's kind of on both sides of the path as you get over to where the pond is. And I think that would tie in probably pretty well with, areas that we're gonna be restoring anyway.
So you need a motion,
Yeah.
Scott, or?
I think so, please.
So move acceptance of this proposal.
Second?
Second.
Second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carried. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks, you too. So it was Eric and Sarah, right?
Yep.
And then we'll do,
Barn swallow, right?
no, actually, rec department.
Put the barn swallows on, is that next?
We removed the,
Oh,
we
okay.
moved the
Sorry,
agenda
sorry.
around, right?
Where are we on the list here?
Well, we're actually,
We
well,
jumped to D.
yep, we're gonna go right to D now. We actually
Yep.
switched D and,
That's right.
uh,
So median growing proposals, correct?
no, recreation division report.
I stand corrected.
So, and actually, we've got, why don't Chad and Austin, you guys, well, why don't you go up, well, why don't you guys go up front up there? This is Chad Siegel. Do you all know Chad Siegel? He's the Recreation Community Center Director. And how long have you been here now, Chad?
Oh, boy, that's a hard first question. Like 11 years.
11 years he's been here. And then, you all remember Tony King, he was here for quite some time, but he went to Stoughton, and Austin Koss is Tony's replacement. So, and actually what I wanted to do is, this is a good opportunity for the Park Commission members to put a face to the name of the people that are working within the Recreation Department, and Chad and Austin, they do a lot of scheduling and recreational programming. They schedule the community center, they do the diamonds, they do the shelters, and they're certainly here to answer any of your questions. But one thing I did want to mention to the group, which I think the Recreation Division needs to be commended, there was a shortfall, I shouldn't say shortfall, but there was, we scheduled or budgeted $190,000 in 2019 to be raised, but they only brought in 165.
Oh, darn.
So, well, the finance department was asking why, so we provided an explanation why, but I also took that opportunity to kind of, like I say, commend the rec department. So I look back from years 2010 to 2014, which were 5 years, which Chad began, the Recreation Department brought in an average of $139,776. And then I did the same thing for the last 5 years, from 2015 to 2019, and that number is 175,276. So I thought that that was a nice increase. And then actually too, like I mentioned, they do the shelters and the ball diamonds and all of that, and I did the same average annual revenue from 2010 to 2014 was 21,115. And then the last 5 years from 2015 to 2019 was 45,871 on an average. So these are the staff that I commend for bringing in the revenue. So and that as I mentioned, is really kind of an indication of not only the Parks Division, which will be here in April with the condition of the facilities, but then just the relationship that they have with their customers, and people are happy, and I really don't hear any complaints, which, and actually what's kind of cool too is we included in the packet today was the annual report, which kind of indicates the number of activities and the number of people that are participating in the program. So they're dealing with upwards of 2,000 customers annually, so without any complaints, really. So I commend them. They're here. Do you have a presentation?
Well, we don't have a presentation. I mean, you obviously touched on it. We do rec programs. That's what everyone thinks of first and foremost. But beyond that, we manage the community center schedule. We're doing park reservations, not just park shelters, but athletic fields, that type of stuff. So and I believe it was in the packet, just the scope of the rec programs that we do. And we really just wanted to give you guys an opportunity to ask us questions about any of those kind of 3 topic areas, whether it's rec programs or community center or park shelters. So I know that's a wide range, and in this discussion could go in a lot of different directions, but if people have questions, about any of those, we're happy to answer them.
So I didn't get a chance to look at the report in detail, but participation in rec sports, how's that over the last 5 years? Is it flat, rising, decreasing?
It's probably maintained. Years ago we used to get a lot of participation through, like Oregon used to participate, for example, in our flag football. Then they got a little more organized, if you will. They decided to offer their own program, so we don't see those kids from Oregon necessarily participating. But in general, our sports programs they maintain pretty well.
Do you have a youth basketball program that occurs?
Youth basketball, yeah. We offer youth basketball for as young as 3 up through 8th grade. So
I've been to a 3-year-old one. I'm pretty
Have you?
excited. Not here, but
Well, then you miss me. I coach those.
oh, it is hilarious.
Oh, it's well organized.
Yes, you get those kids whipped into shape after the first session.
Any thinking, we've had a lot of development in Fitchburg, a lot of it aimed at young families or millennials without families. Can we have rec sports that are sort of geared towards the epic kids who are living in Fitchburg now, or?
I mean, truthfully, all of our youth sports, they're, we're not just reaching out to just those in Fitchburg. They're open to, we'll take any non-resident that wants to participate. And so, certainly the younger epic crowd is one of those, but they'd be open to anybody to participate in.
I have a question. There was the earlier presentation about Terra Basa's playgrounds, and to what extent are you involved with looking at the kind of equipment that's being provided or the organization of the different play spaces? Is that something that you're involved with?
Generally, no.
Truthfully, no, we are not.
Yeah, they don't get involved.
In terms of like the placement of where equipment would go?
And the
or-
thoughts about what's the appropriate equipment. It seems to me if I were to look around Fitchburg and go back 20 years, there was 4 things that made up a community park, and it would be a baseball backstop, it would be a little shelter, it would be a playground, it would be a swing set. And I'm wondering to what extent the facilities that are being done now, for instance, we talked about a half basketball court versus a full court. that-
Soccer space available. that
Yeah,
type of
and then just how things were placed relative to each other in terms of the distance to the street. But you guys run the program, you don't actually do the planning of the facility?
Well, they don't do the programming of those facilities, they do programming for organized activities at our.
Team
athletic
sports.
fields. Team sports.
Right, so when you're talking, yeah, like team sports, during the summer, we'll offer enrichment programs, where we'll utilize these facilities. But in terms of like, open play on, basketball court at a park.
But for team sports, you're keyed into how, do we have enough baseball diamonds for what the demand seems to be?
We never have enough baseball diamonds.
So you do have a lot of participation in baseball.
We get a lot of participation in that, and then we have a lot of groups, truthfully, that are looking to reserve, space that aren't necessarily, related to the rec department. They could be, Oregon Youth Baseball. They have X amount of teams, they're looking for space for those teams to practice, so they're contacting us about, what do you have available for us to practice or host games? And it's not just them, they're just one example, but, if we had 10 more ball diamonds, we'd probably have more groups that got wind of, Fitchburg has more diamonds and truthfully would use them.
Mm-hmm.
And it even gets to the point where, for example, for lacrosse, they've got,
Right.
two high school groups that are vying for the same field, and they both say we would like it Monday through Friday from 4 to 8, and then they've got to kind of.
Do we have the capacity to add a lacrosse field? I mean,
Well,
that's open space, right?
Well, and
Baseball,
that's-
there's
And that's
infrastructure needs, but lacrosse-
Fahey Fields, that's why we were looking to have two
Right,
bigger,
I remember that. That's, yeah.
two bigger spaces.
Yeah.
Well, how, just for instance, there was the suggestion with Terra Vesa that maybe there would be a ice skating. Well, maybe it should be something that's for lacrosse. I don't know what the size of the fields are.
Yeah, see, and again too, Dave, what we really try to do is we try to, organize all of those organized activities in one facility. That's why really McGaw Park has a lot of those types of activities, because they have the parking and the lights and those kinds of things. These neighborhood and area parks are really more designed for the neighborhood for open play. Not to say that there may be a parent who is coaching a soccer team for the rec department, and they say, hey, we got a bunch of open space over here, let's have soccer practice over in the open field. But when you have flag football and you've got 3 fields and 25 teams, and you've got to have the support facilities to have those organized activities. And they may, as part of their enrichment, they may have a class go to McGaw Park to go through the woods or those kinds of things. But the park spaces that they're really coordinating and organizing are the organized kinds of things. In comparison to Terra Vesta is more of just general open play and things like that.
But the soccer field in Terra Vesta, would that be lined by you guys, by you?
We did that at Terra Vesta?
Yeah.
We probably wouldn't line that.
Okay.
That's just enough space,
Got it.
to provide for an open soccer field or whatever it might be. It's just kind of a place,
Got it, yeah.
a place
Okay.
so that there's enough space for someone to have an open play kind of thing.
Whereas in McGaw or McKee, the open areas there just get restriped for different uses, don't they?
At times, yeah, we'll have ultimate frisbee in the outfields of McGaw and things like that.
I mean, in McGaw, for example, it was a soccer field in the past, but it's been, as far as I know, striped for lacrosse for
Lacrosse.
several years now. I don't think soccer has been
No,
played there in a while.
soccer really goes to McKee.
Soccer is,
Okay.
pretty much there's McKee and there's soccer at Tower Hill and Wildwood South.
Okay. So they're striped for that, so this group for that sport goes there, the other one goes to the other part because they're striped.
Right, I mean, if the rec department is using, the Wildwood South fields, then we would stripe them. Now, if if the rec department's not using them and somebody is looking to reserve them, you know, it's unlikely that we would stripe them. You know, they would just simply be available for them to, you know, use for practices if they wanted to reserve them.
They can have it, they can reserve it, but they don't necessarily have the
Have the line
exact
put-
striping. They
Right.
just have to see their own.
There'll be certain
boundaries.
fields that we'll stripe and certain fields we won't stripe.
And your program is mostly in area and community parks, correct? Not as much in neighborhood parks.
Right, I mean, we do a lot, I mean,
Just
certainly we
because
do a
you need
lot of
space.
programming at McKee Farms Park. You know, there's a lot of amenities there, and it's, you know, whether it's the playground or, you know, the shelter that we can house programs out of. But like Scott mentioned, I mean, we'll do activities at McGaw if we're gonna do, you know, it's a great park for doing nature programs. You know, we certainly do Swan Creek, and, you know, we'll have programs at Tower Hill, so, but percentage-wise, you know, certainly most of them would be at McKee.
In your-
Your scholarships and affordability, you know, what's done to make sure things are affordable?
Sure. I mean, certainly, you know, we're looking to basically cover our costs. So, I mean, we're trying to keep the costs as low as we can, as affordable as we can for everybody. Occasionally, we do get people who approach us about a scholarship. And we just basically give that, it's a simple form they fill out, if they're a Fitchburg resident. Or, you know, if we're utilizing a Verona School District facility for the program, you know, then it would extend to Verona School District. And then we just ask participants to pay 25% of the program cost.
Okay.
You know, and certainly, you know, beyond that, I mean, we can, you know, we can arrange payment programs, you know, where maybe they pay half up front and the other half is, you know, due a couple weeks in. I mean, really, you know, we'll take it on a case-by-case basis because we don't want to make, you know, the monetary portion a barrier for participation, so.
In another thing, I did have to go to the finance committee because one of Chad's instructors met the $25,000 threshold as far as receiving, we do 80/20s where the instructor would receive 80% of the registration, and their dance instructor got over $25,000
Yeah, our
one
dan-
year. So
our
I
dance-
had to go to the finance committee, we had to do a pre-approval. But then what it did, I also then preached or promoted what the other things that the rec department does, but. And that's an 80/20, so we're getting 20% just for them to manage the lists and they'll find them a spot and all that kind of stuff. So.
And I'll add that 7 years, I think it was 8 years ago, when we started our dance program, I think we started with 4 classes with our instructor. And now, you know, we just got done with this last session. I think we were at like, what do we have, 17 or so classes that were going at the dance recital. And, you know, obviously she's done a lot of work to get a following. And
So
so,
is
I
this
mean, that's
dance for children?
children. So, yeah, we're talking,
Been to some
you
of
know,
that
as
too.
young as 2 years old up to, you know, 12. But yeah, we're talking the ballet, tap,
Girls in
jazz,
tutus.
all that. So, yes.
And those take place in the senior center or the community center?
Community center is where the classes take place, and then, you know, in that case, we do our end of the year, or end of the session, rehearsal or recital over at Oregon's PAC.
Well, then they do the daddy-daughter dance, which was just held. And they do Pack in the Park, and they're busy.
As far as all the, especially, I suppose, the outdoor recreation events, in your view, looking at it as a supply and demand, would you say that we could use more of a certain kind of field, this field, that field, or something for groups looking for?
In terms of groups
Recreation
looking for a reservation, like reserving athletic facilities?
Well, what are people asking for that you would see, in your view, you have a hard time getting them a field? You know, baseball, tennis,
I mean, certainly,
volleyball, anything like that?
yeah, I mean, you know, we're going through that process right now, and it's, you know, people who are looking for ball diamonds for, you know, whether it's boys baseball or girls softball. I mean, they're coming from everywhere.
How many diamonds do we have?
I'm
How
sorry,
many
what's that?
diamonds do we have, Chad?
I believe
4,
there's
5.
13 of them. you know, it's just the demand from the months of, you know, probably mid-April through end of July. You know, you've got organizations and a lot of teams looking for practice time, and, you know, within that, we try to divvy it up in terms of you get a 90-minute block of time. That way we can accommodate 2 groups in an evening, and there's still, you know, we're not able to be everything to everybody. You know, I think they have to look at other locations in terms of, you know, what else is out there in Madison, Verona, Oregon. You know, we'll do the best we can to work with the groups. And certainly, you know, some we've got, you know, we've been working with for years, so we kind of know what to expect. Others, you know, are new, and there's these organizations that pop up and say, hey, you know, go check out what you can get in Fitchburg. You know, see what Fitchburg has.
Good luck.
If you could, you know,
So-
advise, if you could advise at some point to this commission about what fields potentially, you know, a long view into the future that are in demand, that might be something that could go into future park.
Well, and I guess I would comment that, you know, certainly in Chad and Austin and their programs get first priority on all those athletic fields. You know, and I guess I would feel, and I defer to Chad, but I feel we've got enough facilities to adequately provide the services to our residents through our recreational programs.
Oh, yeah, without question. I mean, if you're talking just simply, you know, the rec department, you know, we have first priority in terms of fields, and we have enough fields, whether it's for baseball or whether it's for soccer or, you know, to meet our needs. You know, if you're talking big picture outside of what our needs are, you know, it's kind of one of those, you build them, you know, people will come and use them. So, but internally, yes, the facilities that we currently have, you know, meet our needs.
Are we planning though adequately for future growth? I mean, we're not creating any additional community parks or area parks for quite a few years now.
Right.
Look, like I say, we've got plenty to take care of, you know, any kind of expansion that I would foresee. Certainly, I think.
You're saying there's plenty of open space to accommodate future growth?
You know, to take care of our, certainly if we want to provide services to Oregon and Verona and Middleton and all these other communities, and we could, like Chad says, we can build as many as we can and we'll get them filled. But as far as for our residents here in the city of Fitchburg, we have plenty of athletic field facilities, so we don't need to build any new facilities
Even with
for
all
us.
these new developments, all the developments over there, we just saw, you know, developed today, even with all those new developments, we're not hitting the capacity.
Well,
I mean, we're not yet. I mean, you know, it's hard to predict the future.
Well, and it raises a good point of what are we doing to serve our residents and not having the outside forces drive the demand or growth.
I think with growth, that's going to expand our need for facilities.
Right, but that's different than
Yeah, right.
growing
And I
because Oregon isn't doing enough in their own community to
Right,
make space.
And even with Fahey Fields, with those 2 athletic fields, you know, with soccer and all of those kinds of things, and we've got 13 diamonds, so, you know, unless we want to go to hometown league baseball and all of those kinds of things where you don't have a regulation size field in the city, but there's really not a.
Do ultimate frisbee, or is that
That's
just
ultimate
usually the school?
Do we offer ultimate frisbee through the rec department? We do not through the rec department. We do have the Madison Ultimate Frisbee Association that utilizes the space between Stony Prairie, Savannah Oaks. I think they even do a little bit out at McGaw during the fall.
Oh, a lot. at
Swan
McCall.
Creek.
They like the lights.
Swan Creek, and so.
And didn't we learn that there's, at the golf course, does he do
That's
ultimate?
disc golf.
That's, okay,
Yeah,
sorry.
yeah. Ultimate frisbee, you know.
Totally
it's a little
different.
bit different, yeah.
Yes.
A lot of these fields, baseball, tennis courts, volleyball and everything are just ad hoc. People just show up and start playing. So they're not reserved through the rec department. But I'm wondering if you see what are the interest in sports, in particular sports, this sport, the next sport, and such change over time. So I'm wondering if you see trends in what is popular sports of today or so. We just heard about Teravesa there, an opinion that tennis court was not popular with him, so he didn't want to build tennis courts. I see tennis courts used a lot. So I don't know what you see about, especially reservations for the courts as you rent out the courts.
I mean, certainly you're right that, there's nothing forcing people to reserve facilities in terms of baseball diamonds or tennis courts. However, if you want to guarantee, that your team or that you're going to be able to show up somewhere and have, the ability to play, we do get a lot of people who go the route of, okay, I would rather show up or I'd rather make a reservation. That way I know I have it when I show up.
Yeah.
But again, it's kind of a game you could play in terms of, well, I do want to reserve it or I don't want to reserve it.
How many tennis courts did you reserve last year?
Tennis courts, not many.
0.
Not many. No, I mean,
Like,
we
so
did
does it-
some,
People
but,
just go to the court and start playing.
but, generally people are gonna go to McKee especially, because there's 6 courts there, and the odds are,
Okay, so
One
they
of
show
them's
up and they
gonna be able
start
to
playing on an
start
available court,
on
or
an
they
available
wait
court. Right.
or something. So, I mean, you're at a disadvantage if you don't know exactly, let's say all tennis courts, for example, all the tennis courts scattered all over the place. You don't know exactly how much they're being used because you don't see reservations for them. Because a lot of them are just, they show up and they start playing. But I'm wondering if you have any insight into what is popular. I mean, maybe you would say we have enough or plenty of tennis courts to supply the need, and we're good on that. And see, I'm wondering if there's anything that we should look at to try and build. For example, Teravesa, we mentioned tennis courts. He doesn't want to build any tennis courts.
We
So
can't
all of those
take
people
that.
there are not going to play tennis courts in their own
We
neighborhood.
can't maintain the tennis courts we have, Patrick.
Can't?
No.
Oh, okay.
Our tennis courts are,
Well, I guess I wasn't surprised by the tennis court comment either. That Swan Creek, those tennis courts, living across the street from those tennis courts for 12 years, I didn't see them used consistently. People would use them, but not
Nobody's
nearly as
waiting in
often.
line.
Mm-mm. Not nearly as often as the walking trails, like you were saying. Right?
Okay, I thought they were popular, but, I'm not there all the time.
So, is that conclude the report, or any more questions? I'm just thinking we got.
You poor guys sat through all that other stuff.
we'll be here till the
I don't want to
questions
push you
stop.
out.
but-
no, and again, with, well, I'm sorry.
I just have a general question. To what extent do you work with or communicate or share information with Oregon, Verona, Middleton, Sun Prairie? Are you,
With the other rec departments?
yeah, just in general, sort of either keeping current with them, what they're doing, what you're doing, or?
All the time.
Okay.
All the time. I mean, in terms of, we're seeing what they're offering. I'm sure they're looking at what we're offering.
Sure.
We do a lot of cooperative programs with local communities. Especially with our youth sports as they get older. The numbers tend to drop off because they have more options. You can go play, there's a lot of different basketball leagues you can go play in 5th grade, for example. We'll offer 5th grade basketball. Fitchburg might get 1 or 2 teams. And so what we did was we created basically a rec department league, if you will, where Verona, Fitchburg, Sun Prairie's not in there, but Middleton. That way, each of the communities is in the same boat. We're each getting 1 or 2 teams. Rather than turning those groups away, if we're all collaborating together, now we can have a 8-team league and still give these kids an opportunity to play.
Sure, good.
So, that's one example, but yeah, we check it all the time to see what people are doing
Mhm.
Competition, right?
and,
Yeah.
see what people are charging,
Sure.
for their programs. And,
Well, that's,
we want to be competitive and
I like
keep
the
up with the
example
Joneses.
of
if you
working cooperatively. I like the example that you gave.
will.
It serves everybody
Mhm.
well.
Good job.
Again,
Yeah.
Okay.
thanks, Rick. Austin, do you have your speech ready? Or?
Save it.
Bring it
Next
next time. Thanks, you guys.
You bet.
All right.
Thanks for hanging out. Now we'll go to let's go to the Burn Park Barn Swallow update.
Where are we? I'm getting lost here.
We're doing C.
We're way up here.
We only
so-
switched C and
Way
D.
up there.
Yeah, we
Okay.
just switched C and D, so we just had the rec department, now we're gonna have.
Okay, I switched the wrong ones.
And maybe just to introduce this, it kind of started with one of the residents, one of the neighbors, had concerns that, well, here's the barn swallows that are making residents in the top of the shelter.
This is the Burn Park shelter here.
This is it, yep,
Same
yep,
park
and
we're
this
talking
is,
about.
yep, and this is the barn swallows.
I have a question. How many identical structures do we have in Fitchburg to this?
That are like this?
Yeah.
That's a good question.
I know Wildwood
you-
South Prairie Park
yeah,
is
we've got-
very much the same.
We've got several out there.
Yeah, lots.
Several, like 6?
Less than six or
Okay.
less.
All right. So this could be a problem at all 5 of them.
I would, and actually to Susan's point when Phil was talking about, you know, as we continue to look at the zoning for new facilities, we wanna keep this in mind. But the resident was concerned, because, you know, the barn swallows had droppings and things like that. So the idea is, you know, he wanted to basically remove the nests and put something up there to prevent them from nesting, which is something that we could do, but, you know, Sue and Anna have been working diligently to, the ideal thing to do is to create a different location for them to live. And actually Sue has been able to secure a group similar to this to go out and construct this type of a facility, which we're looking, and that was kind of part of the conversation that Claudia and Corey were having to find a location to place it. So I guess that is really the solution that we're looking to suggest here to remedy this. Certainly the resident who wanted us to evict them right now, and you know, he's not going to be happy. I will tell you that I had no less than 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 residents who sent me emails, who basically, and I'll just read this first one, which is kind of the whole, I won't read them all, but I'm writing this in favor of a 2-step response to the barn swallow issue at the shelter of our neighborhood park. I agree that they leave a horrible mess. However, I also know that our neighborhood has a horrendous mosquito problem since the city tried to fix the runoff issue right next to the park. Therefore, I ask that the city back the 2-year approach to the issue. So it's really kind of, I think everybody's in agreement that we want to try and find a different spot for them before we, you know, boot them out. So that's really what we're proposing to do here.
It's a very difficult problem. I mean, before we added on to the senior center, the old balcony was a constant problem.
Yeah.
And we used to put those spikes in there and everything, and, you know, sometimes you're hitting your head against the wall trying to find solutions, but
Well,
I think
there's some,
it's worth a try what
Yeah.
you're proposing, but
there's one of the documents that was in the attachments was the study by UWM, and they went through every different way of trying to make barn swallows stay away and how well they don't work.
yeah.
And so their solution, or what's recommended, because in Canada, the numbers have dwindled so that by law, any road construction where you're gonna be disturbing nests that are occurring under underpasses, et cetera, the structures like you saw, but large ones, are put up a full 12 months in advance, and that's what this 2-year discussion is. You allow the swallows, in our instance, to come back 1 more year to where they are. But then, as soon as you can in spring, as they're returning, you do have this new structure up, and they have the year as they explore and kill bugs and do all the things they do to know that this other thing is here. When they come back the following spring, then those nests in the shelter are gone, access is blocked. And there may be a way to block it
Yeah, we
with,
actually got-
like even just
that's
a
what we-
plywood
yep,
across the whole
That's what we.
hexagram, yeah.
Mhm, mhm.
So then they have no choice. They come back the second year and they cannot get into the old spot, but they say, oh, we remember this. Let's try
Smart
this.
little thing, good.
So unfortunately, it leaves the neighbors one more year of tiptoeing around.
Yeah.
And one of the neighbors said it, and I don't know, because some people say that they'll have 2 broods a year. Sometimes they say they have 1 brood. So if it's 1 brood, the birds that make the biggest mess are the babies, because they don't poop on the fly. They just get on the rim of the nest, turn their butts around and poop straight down, and you see these massive
Oh,
piles.
nice.
So it'll be great to work it out, and they'll have to just figure it out that second year. And the little wrinkle in all of this is it would be ideal if there wasn't a construction project going on next door, because sometimes that throws all the birds up into a tizzy anyway, but that's just life, that's the way it is.
This is all focused on Burn Park, just for
For
like a trial or
now.
so?
And
Well, and I'll tell you, not to interrupt you, but Jordan said too, at Dowley Bike Hub, that it's just full of them.
Brand new
And I tell
building.
you, that would be, well, not brand new,
Yeah.
but that would be another nice,
Yeah.
another good location if this is successful to try and,
well, and
in
Jake
that prairie
Johnson
area.
wrote back, I just got that,
you know.
They will
saying he
find
also
any-
might be interested in putting together a group to build something like that. So there's a lot of interest, and really anywhere in this city or anywhere where you have the stormwater facilities, the infiltration facilities, and then park structures, or the library entrance or the senior center overhang, there's an opportunity to do this. And it's great that Waukesha County has put up the first one, and they base their plans off of some ideas from Ontario. And I want to touch base one more time with the woman in Waukesha, because she had some tweaks that she would do for her next structure, and I want to just verify what those are. So,
Well, at the time we were working on the community
Thank
center
you.
was more of an internal matter, but it didn't seem like we were winning.
yeah,
And until they put that addition on, that solved the problem, because it eliminated the balcony completely.
There
No,
may
it's
be
just-
some value in, just observing around all the different structures that we have. For example, the McGaw shelter, the McKee open shelter, there's no nests on there. The Greenfield shelter, I don't think there's any on there. The McKee Kids Crossing, no barn swallow nest there. Something works on those, but then these other ones attract them. So maybe somebody could figure out why
there's some, yeah.
they like certain ones, and then work on, designing that feature out of future ones.
Some of it's
Don't like the
design and
ones that
some of
really
it
don't like.
can be siting, because if there's a lot of human activity and they've got a second option, they'll take the second option.
I don't know, barn swallows seem very tolerant of
I-
people.
Yes and no, I agree with you, because there they are in your park shelter.
Right there, yeah.
But if you're saying you didn't see it in Kids Crossing, maybe it's because it's,
Well, I'm
too much
saying somehow the various shelters, McKee,
oh, there's
McGaw, and
definitely
such,
design,
they're built so that the barn swallows didn't find a place to build
Correct.
a nest. So
Right.
there was something good in
You
that
bet.
regard there.
Mhm.
And other ones they really like.
anything, yes, very true.
And I think I interrupted you, but, so, did you have anything else to add to that?
No, I was good.
So is the question, are we gonna, the volunteer group wants to build one of these now for this summer of 2020?
They
Start
wanted,
changing the behavior of the birds, and then summer 21.
the birds come back and they've
walk
got,
off the top
yeah,
of
they
the-
have, they cannot, they may
and
not.
They can't go, and
Right.
so we're dealing,
So
How close is the structure going to be to the shelter?
Well, that's what Scott has to, we have to figure out, maybe Claudia will have a way of letting us know how close to get, because she's right in saying, or you may have said it, ideally, they'd like to be close to that bioswale area, and you certainly want to keep it as far away from the
Will
barn
they-
structure.
Will they find that?
Well, you
Well-
put it on wheels. And
Will they find that?
Sure, because I would think so.
Well, I think that's an ideal spot.
Right.
To put it down
Yeah,
there.
but you can't
It's
just
just-
lay your way doing
But
construction.
what works against you is if it were all, if that project had been done last year,
They're just
it'd be
gonna-
very quiet.
They're just gonna have to deal with construction just like everybody else.
Right,
It's
yeah.
part of summer.
They'll do less of this exploring, but the machines shut off and they'll finish the project and they're here for a few more months after that.
They'll figure it out.
Yeah, I think so.
They're smart.
In the burn part, the bioswale area may be ideal, but, you know, so much construction planned for this year. We didn't have a map of the whole burn part, but it seems to me the northern part of it is very rough grass,
Yeah, there might be.
no activities there and everything, and
Yeah,
there's no plans for construction or fill or anything.
right. Well, that's
That
some of
might
the
be the
stuff.
better
So we'll
area
have to- we'll have to-
We'll have
to
to
put
look.
something up
Yeah.
for this year.
So what's really before the group is, are you okay with the idea that there might be one upset customer out there, but the real way to do it, maybe the upset customer.
I guess I don't quite understand where it's coming from. And I don't think it's very light either.
What's that?
I'm not upset about it.
Oh, let's introduce, are you Mr. Thole?
Yes,
Okay, hi.
we met.
We met in January, and he lives across the way, and we talked about getting rid of the poopy birds out of the shelter. So you've heard what we're talking about as far as an idea. What do you think?
Well, the biggest thing I see is there's a horse barn right down back in the back side the barn. There's just like freeway between the shelter and the barn. They get on there, they drink, they eat whatever food, because there's cats in there, and there's other things. And they sit on the wire down there. So they got a natural habitat. And then farther south on the edge of the park, there's houses with decks. They're also living under there. And those people don't mind, that's fine. The problem is in the shelter, you don't dare take a kid in there. You can't sit there. People pull the picnic tables out, and I think they're doing it hoping for rain. Well, if it don't rain very much or long, or if it's quite a while before it rains, the picnic tables sit outside the shelter. The shelter isn't used.
And this is because the birds are essentially raining down on the
Yeah,
picnic
right in the
table.
center, right?
It's not, I mean, the birds don't go after people or anything.
No.
Some crows and things like that are defensive of their nest.
I think the other ones do when they fly or leave the nest. I think they do get on the table and make a mess, but that's pretty short term. But people just don't use the shelter.
Right.
It's,
And
That's what they
picnic
did
tables
out
aren't even
here,
in
it
the
was
shelter.
right at the entrance, and people had to walk in it, you know. So
Yeah,
it was-
it'll be,
It's messy, I
These small
agree.
houses work. I grew up in the Mississippi River and they're all over down there. But they surely aren't 100% occupied. I'd say maybe 25% of all, 25%. That's okay too. So, and nobody's talking about killing birds. I've never-
No, no.
I've never mentioned that once.
no, I don't think anybody
I
said
know
that.
you just voiced concern that
Yeah,
you're
I just
upset that
read
you.
my email.
Yeah.
Sent back in June
Yeah.
and September and October and December.
So where did that?
I didn't receive it till December.
Oh, okay.
So I didn't think the birds arrived until like late May. I don't think they're here yet, correct?
They're not.
That their migration had, so I mean, is it, this is fantastic that you found volunteers to build this,
Mhm.
but, I mean, could they build it quick, like, is it at all plausible that they've been here years previous and know this barn exists and they know that there's alternative?
Well, there's
Options
a
that-
colony that lives in Mr. Pliner's barn. There's a colony that lives under Anderson's deck. And there's a colony that lives, I mean, and I'm using that word loosely, but then there's a colony in the park shelter. So there are some social things they do with each other where they'll exclude each other from, you know, an in-group and out-group. So getting this one to shift into this other structure is the main goal, getting them out of there. And so the people who have volunteered to build it, they would like it, their end of it done and maybe up around Earth Day. So you might have some swallows come and see it right away and say, hey, we're moving in. But you reduce the chances by quite a bit if you rip down the nests this year. It's really best, from what I've read of the projects and how they do them in Ontario, is that 2-year system. Because their first instinct is to go where they've always gone. And if those nests are gone, they might go who knows where. And so if you're viewing the birds as a benefit to the neighborhood as far as insect eating, you're hoping that they just will migrate
To a
to the
different-
house down the block.
Just move a short ways instead of miles away.
Yeah, yeah. So,
Okay.
that's the reasoning behind
No,
it.
thank you, that makes, and their nests are still there?
Yep.
They don't, okay.
I think so, yeah.
And actually, I think I don't think we're gonna remove the nest, because I think they're an endangered species, so you would need a permit in order to remove the nest.
Yeah,
I think
it's changed the,
we won't remove the nest, we'll just
block them in.
block.
Well, I'll have to look, we'll find, there's time to
Please.
figure that out. But, some people actually carefully take those nests and put them in another alternate structure when they're trying to get them to go. But so we can figure that out
Right.
at the season's end, after they've used them one more year.
I don't remember if I read in here that they reuse the same nest, or they do?
They often do, yes.
Okay.
Mhm.
So what happens if you remove the nest, clean them out like now?
Well, if you,
That's bad.
if you don't, if you take the nest down and you don't block access, as you know, they come right
You
back.
just make it,
They'll make a new one.
that's
If you
what I
block
figured.
access
Well,
with
plus you-
rabbits, they will leave the neighborhood and we'll miss out.
Yeah, we hope,
On the
we
insect
wanna be
eating,
nice.
the insect eating potential.
Right.
Plus, you've displaced them unexpectedly, and then they may just go
Yeah.
away.
They're all
We don't have-
suffering a lot of, all the bird species are suffering a lot of pressure anyway, so it just would seem sort of an infliction of unnecessary harm when we're working to avoid it.
I read through all these various methods that were suggested in here, and I don't know if this is going to be just an attempt in Burn Park or other parks that have similar shelters with barn swallows.
Well, it's just gonna be in Burn Park.
Okay.
Yeah. we can
Um,
see
As a
how-
result of the concerns that we were hearing.
I was seeing, there was various proposals in here that had cost estimates of buying this tape or glue or, well, buying various things. One was buying tennis balls and everything like this, and I would suggest, I mean, if you're just working on the burn gazebo shelter there, that's a very limited place to try this out, but try many different methods and see what works when you come to the point, which might be next year, about blocking them out of places. I would say go for as cheap as possible and not put many, many dollars into, some of these things were quite expensive for a roll of special tape or something like this. I read the one about using the tennis balls over the bolt heads or so, and I laughed. This proposal or this suggestion, wherever it was from, said $1.89 or something for a package of 3 new tennis balls. Well, don't go out and buy new tennis balls. Go to the McKee tennis court. Some company or something like that has a box fastened onto the side of the tennis courts there. They have the lock on the bottom of it. They collect the old tennis balls. Either get them to give you a bunch of their old used tennis balls and use that, or if they don't want to be cooperative, cut the lock off and take the balls out and use the old tennis balls. Don't spend a lot of money to buy new tennis balls for this.
Well, and that report was specifically written for the Waukesha Park shelters, and there they had the bolts on the structure being used by the birds to anchor the
Yeah.
upside of their
Yeah.
nest.
Yeah.
So if they put a tennis ball over it, there was all these tested methods, what worked,
Right.
what didn't.
Right.
Yeah. So if we have areas with bolts being the issue, we could try tennis balls.
So, who,
We'll work on Burn Park.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's just one at a
Okay.
time.
done? All right,
Yep.
so, Kona Ice proposal?
Well, I guess I'd like a proposal, a motion to go to the two-step approach, the 2-year approach in a second.
Oh,
No,
so
forward this
moved.
for
Two-step
Karen, is
approach.
that the idea?
What's that?
So moved, two-step.
Thank you,
Okay,
Eric.
second?
Second.
Okay, second by
And
Dave.
can I just ask a quick question, just add, so that we're committing though, that by next year, before the spring, Burnwood's gonna be resolved? That without a doubt, the two-step approach is committing to that timeline, that even if for some reason the volunteers can't get done with the house this year, or whatever happens, but we're saying by 2021, there's a swallow solution for the shelter, correct? That's
Yes.
the two-part solution. Can that include that statement? Is that a friendly thing that we can say, that regardless of shelter status and volunteer who knows
So
as
in
to
other
what
words, if we can't
happens.
get, if we can't get phase one done this summer.
We gotta get something
then
taken care of
we'll
for the
go, and
shelter.
next year, we'll just take the nest away and
Well,
block
we
it.
won't take the mess away.
Or we'll
just
block
cut it.
access.
Block
We'll just cut
access.
We'll do what's legal.
Right.
Which I think you
That's fair.
can, I think you can block it, it's just you can't remove them if there's eggs.
Yeah,
Cause that's,
well, that
Once-
could be too. That
once
could be
there's
too.
eggs, I know for the condo, we had swallow problems, and it was awful. I mean, it really did make outdoor space unusable, and as a new structure, we put up spikes, and it did deter them. And that working with kind of the wildlife, I can't remember who exactly contacted, but it was just, you could not touch the nests once there were
During the
eggs.
breeding
Yes.
season, yeah.
Oh, well, that could be. We want to make sure that we're not.
Oh, without a doubt,
Yeah,
yes.
so you're
I'm just
amending
friendly
template.
asking.
Yeah, friendly.
Oh, that's,
But what you're saying on that amendment is even if we or somebody doesn't do the part one of building the alternates.
I am,
The part two is still gonna go ahead in the next year blocking them off.
yes.
Correct, correct.
That seems a little rough, and not following the prescribed relocation
We're
plan.
trying to get this done in
Correct.
2 years.
Yeah, like that's for a timeline.
Well, we got,
You know, it's gonna get done.
Yeah, I'm confident it's going to get
I
done.
think it will.
Okay, good, let's vote.
All right, was that okay? Okay,
Sure.
oh,
We're good with what she said, okay? And you got that?
Yep, yep.
Okay, good.
Can I back up on the pond just for just a minute?
Yeah.
You know, I like grass, I like trees, I like flowers, I like all that. There's a suggestion to put in more prairie flowers and all that, and that's fine, but you could have a lot of invasive stuff come in there. And last year, we were sitting in the same room, the same discussion with all the invasive species in that park. And they had to be cut, and they had to be treated, and it still isn't done. So
Well,
we just don't know.
I guess we've done some work in there.
We've done some work in there, but underneath the trees, who Dan Piner says he does not own, there's lots of shoots that were never cut out of there. So we're gonna go right back through the same thing with those. Plus, like I said, the isn't as, native prairie, it's great, but get native prairie, you gotta burn it every 3 years.
Yep.
And
We
that won't
are,
happen.
well, we're working towards
Okay,
that,
that's
towards
good.
that goal.
So when you say shoots, do you mean the Canada thistle?
No, everything. There was trees, there was, we sat in here one night, Mike Williams was with me and JR was with me, and we had a list of all the trees. There was like 40-some trees. That wasn't shoots. It's like bushes, something you could reach this high and something like that. Like 40-some of them.
That shouldn't be there because it's prairie.
Most of those have been taken out, but all the
Yeah.
shoots back in the pines are still there.
Ah,
Now, I don't know if more shoots will come this year, because they put that guard on the floor on everything they cut.
Right,
What they have is you
right,
cut them,
right.
unless you do it right now, and you cut it, you miss them.
We're,
Yeah, and so if you go with native prairie, that's fine, but it takes more maintenance, is what I'm saying. There's more cost involved. Just, I'm not trying to deter you from doing that. Just gotta have an answer for it is all. Okay?
You're saying
Yeah.
it needs a commitment.
Pardon me?
You're saying it needs a commitment to follow through on these kind of plans.
Well, it'd be nice if somebody could back and get all the shoots, because in a couple of years, we're gonna have trees growing in the pines. And then I'm
Okay.
gonna comment about the native prairie, it's just that you either gotta burn it or you really gotta maintain it. And when we first moved in there, original owners of the house, there was youth soccer on that, in that park. And then about year 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 or whatever it was, the pocket gophers moved in. The kids' legs started falling down in holes. And the same way with the ball, well, I can't call it the ball field, there's a backstop. That's why nobody uses it. That ain't nobody's fault.
Okay.
Pocket gopher's fault, it's nobody else's fault.
well, we
That's the
gotta-
reason why it
we
isn't
gotta
used.
put a perch up there for the
So,
hawks.
This is the first good step, so
Yep. We're going.
hearing no further discussion on the motion and second, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
aye.
All those opposed, motion carried.
Thank you so much. And we really have done a lot of work in that burn prairie area park, so.
Kona Ice?
So he
Kona-
did complain a number of times, but you didn't get the emails.
What's that?
He mentioned many times he sent emails, but they didn't,
I never.
you never got them, okay.
I didn't hear about it until December of 2018.
All those letters that you had, were they all from Burnwood Park neighbors? About the Burnwood shelter?
I'd have to go through,
Okay.
but they were
I
generally.
mean, I just wonder if there's an interest in any other park that should be looked at in the same way here.
She's trying to see how this works.
That's
It
phase
works.
two, that's phase two.
Yeah.
So are you good?
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
no, I'm excited about it. I think, I like the idea of it being treated as a pilot, and
Yeah.
all positives.
Kona Ice is our next item, and that is, they're the concession stand provider at the splash pad, and they've been there since 2014, and in 2015 until 2019, they were paying $400 per year, and they'd like to keep that at the same price for 2020.
And this is a truck system
Yes.
of
yes,
vending?
Yep, and they provide the concessions and those kinds of things.
What would be the consistent policy as it relates to a fee structure as to what you've done with other types of situations? In other words, you try to increase it 1%?
We,
Hold it
well, I
steady
know-
for 5 years? What do you?
No real policy, Dave. I think it's, certainly with the recreation programs, we try to increase them as the expenses increase. But we don't have any, inflationary policy as far as every year it goes up. And really with Kona Ice, they're really providing us a service to the customers there. I did way back when do a RFP for concession stand vending there. We didn't receive any except Kona Ice, so it really.
You're asking for 1 year? Keep it the same?
Yeah,
for 1 year?
we do it every year. We take a look at it every year.
Well, I think it would be, it's up to you to have a feeling of what's appropriate, but I think in general, things cost more. And I think, to be quite honest, I've had my grandchildren go there when they ask for a Kona Ice. If it's 20 cents or $2, I'm gonna pay the going rate.
Right.
So I think they have the ability to raise their fees quite a bit. But again, I think we just want to be fair. I agree with it, that it's a service, whether it's nutritionally appropriate, that's another matter.
As far as the revenue collected by the city, I remember there's been discussions in the past about charging vendors like this either a percentage of their sales or a flat fee. And as I remember, the discussions of a percentage of the sales just got too complicated about, well, is this your real honest total? And then we get a percentage of that. The flat fee maybe, well, for one thing, was simpler and might give them more incentive to really,
Be there.
sell like crazy, because once they cover their fee, it's all profit. So that's what this is based on, right? A fee for the year?
Yep, just an
What-
annual fee.
What are you recommending, Scott?
I say we stay, I appreciate the service, $400 is $400. I'd hate to say, okay, it's gonna be $450, and then say, well, we're going somewhere else.
Is there anything here that requires us approval?
I would, I'll want to first and a second that you'd be okay with the $400 as we've done before in the past.
Okay.
I remember when you did RFP at our request, and there was no interest, and I do think the kids are very excited when they see the Kona Ice, that I will, I'll move to
It's
approve.
free, it's.
Yeah, keep the 400,
Okay.
and I move.
I'll
Second? Okay.
Sue seconded.
Got a motion and second. Hearing no further discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
I will let them know.
Carried.
Thank you. What's the next? S. Johnson Playground? Okay, did you all get a
Playground
chance?
selection time.
Did you all get
Highlight.
a chance?
This is why we're on the committee. This is
This is the big decision. Now, come on now, which,
I'd say whatever the neighborhood wants.
well, I've got what the neighborhood
I will,
wants.
I will note for the record, I live in the neighborhood and I'm not recusing myself.
I have a
I don't
question.
have-
Should I tell you how the voting went?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay,
Was
So-
a surprise?
Oh, I suppose, but we did do a surprise.
well.
We did surprise, last time we voted, and then we wanted to see what the neighbors said.
We
Ah,
aligned
yeah.
with the
We
neighborhood.
aligned.
Yeah.
That makes
You
it more
came up with the
interesting.
same thing.
We did the same
Yeah,
thing,
we
did.
yeah.
Yeah, that was easy.
So, right, we didn't know,
Well,
what
here,
the neighbors said
here's
first.
how the votes came in. Northern won. They had 14, or 17 points. Northland 2, I will say we had 18 voters out of the 32 letters that I sent, so I thought that was pretty good. Northland 2 was 12. Lee number 1 was 32. Lee number 2 was 21. Gerber 1 was 3. Gerber 2 was 8. Borland 1 was 2. Borland 2 was 2. And Minnesota, Wisconsin was 9.
What? Ooh,
So, okay, so.
is that the plan?
Northland 1 was 17.
That's the top left of
Yep,
this
top
screen.
left. Northland 2
Bottom left.
was 12. Top right was 32 by Lee Recreation. The one below it was 21. Then Gerber 1 was 3. Top left. And the bottom, Gerber 2 was 8. And you can see it's just there's not much there. Borland 1 was 2. Borland 2 was 2. And then Minnesota, Wisconsin actually got 9.
Is that the last two here?
Yes, those are the last two.
And what do you mean? Oh, is that the same thing?
Yeah, that's
No.
the same thing. Two
Oh,
different views.
Didn't realize that.
Two different
So that got
ways
how
to
many?
put it together.
That got 9.
I think, yeah, I agree with everyone, and that was gonna be my favorite, the kids swing on the rope. That did
Good
it for
view.
me.
Well, and it's. yeah,
That
it's
Lee
just
number
there's-
1?
There's,
Yeah.
well, and actually, here, they weren't required to send this, but some companies were. In the first and second place was Lee 1 and Lee 2, and the Lee 1 is this one.
Oh, yeah, that's
So you can really get,
Let's
you know,
win.
play value and all of those kinds of things.
I have,
That
well,
would-
a question about the division between the swings and the playground.
Yes.
This doesn't look like it's as big a problem as some parks, but we talked about how kids will run out into the street. There's a lot of kids that run right into the path of swings.
And that's why, yeah.
And
that's why-
I like that it's separate,
Yeah.
so in the future, if there's any other problems, they could think about a split rail fence or something just to slow them down, but it just even seems like the grass is a nice visual for them to.
I moved lead number 1.
That away.
Scott, could you give those scores
Yeah.
again on Northland 1 and 2?
Northland 1 was 17, and Northland 2 was 12. So Eric,
Lead number 1.
Lee number 1.
Lead number 1.
Sarah second. All those in favor? Oh, I'm sorry, Mark. I'm trying to keep this moving.
Do we have a motion? I'm
And a
sitting here
second.
trying.
Yeah, we're good,
And a
we got a
second.
second already.
And a
Oh, okay.
second.
Yeah.
I'm still trying to find it, so.
Come on.
No, I just all over the place here. I gotta move the picture over
It's
here.
well organized.
I'll just look at it up there.
So we got a motion in a second.
Okay, any further discussion?
That's on Lee number
All
1.
those,
Lee number 1, yep.
hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Excellent.
All those
I'm gonna-
opposed, motion carried.
I will fill in a little background here. This is my neighborhood. There's about 35 residences in here. Most of us, like me, are retired. Kids are growing up. There are 5 kids of age in the right age that will use this in this neighborhood. So my question then is, we did like 2 or 3 or something of this last year, and then we got this year. Is this a rotation thing you're going around through the various neighborhoods, picking out the oldest ones and replacing it with new?
Picking the ones that are safety and consumer safety product concerns and all of that
Okay.
kind of stuff.
Is there going to be like another 1 or 2 or something this year?
We'll get to the CIP and then
Okay.
we'll
Okay.
take a look at that.
Okay,
So the next item is the median. We actually have, we had proposals out for median mowing, one proposal, and then another proposal for the median landscape to be maintained. We did not receive any proposals for the landscape. although Joanne's working and he might have a proposal from someone who might be interested in doing it. The median, we got 2 bids on the median mowing. One was from Prime Landscapes, which I believe may have done it last year. And what it was is there's like 17 different areas.
Big difference.
You can see it at the top there, and for one mowing, it came up to, for Prime Landscape was $1,050. Barnes bid the same work, and it was $3,120.
Is Barnes the company that is
That's a big
spelled
difference.
B-A-R-N-E-S?
Oh, it's BARNES, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Prime Landscape just doesn't sound familiar, I don't know.
I think they did, I believe they did it last year for us.
Does this go through some kind of qualification about making sure they're a good vendor and they can do the work and history and stuff like that?
Not-
Or
not
This
really.
is not a big deal for these?
No, these are people that do that. And then we also have a mulching alternative, just to kind of give you an idea of the costs. So what we did, or what Joran did, is we went through and did a pre-approval for the Prime Landscapes. So this is this kind of a,
Which was,
and-
which we had them last year
Yeah.
satisfactorily.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't understand what mulching alternative means. What is that
Well,
about?
we just asked for a price for them to mulch the trees.
Oh,
So this
okay.
was this was their, it's an alternate, so we can decide to take it or not take it. They
Okay.
just provided us a price for
Well,
To
now,
mulch
is-
around certain trees?
it.
Or all the median
with-
trees?
Within those, within
Okay.
the specific medians.
I get it.
And you look at the map, see, here's the different areas that's mowed. These are the tricky areas that, they go through all of PD, McKee, and all of Fish Hatchery. But those are the tricky ones, the different areas.
So you're recommending the alternate as well?
I don't know if I don't know if we're going to do the alternate or not.
Was this the idea that I asked you about this before the February
Mm-hmm.
meeting, and then we never had that meeting. Was this the idea that there was 2 separate contracts envisioned here, one for mowing and one for mulching?
No.
Landscaping?
Landscaping.
Oh, so do we not have anything in here about landscaping? Because there was no bid.
We did not receive a bid for the
Okay.
landscaping, but Jordan is
And-
trying to find someone to do it.
And mulching is not landscaping?
No, mulching is part of the.
Around the trees?
Around the trees, right. And the mulching is we have the roundabouts and, all those planting areas up on Fish Hatchery and all of, and actually out on, by Rimrock and there's a lot of stuff.
So if mulching is not picked up as an alternate on here, then it won't get done, right?
Around the trees, that's correct.
Doesn't that protect the trees?
It does, but you don't have to do it every year because the mulch ring will tend to stay there, so you don't really need to do it every year. So it's just part of the bid that he asked for a price for.
So we wouldn't need it necessarily this year?
I don't know, I'll leave that up to Jordan.
Okay.
But we've got a price for it.
Well, aren't we deciding if we want to pick up the alternate or not?
That'll be, Jordan will decide whether we do that or
What are we going to decide then?
not. Well, I'm just providing this information for you, just to let you know.
It's an action item, we're looking to vote on
Prime is
something.
gonna get it, because there's
This
this
is just kind
huge
of
difference in the estimates, get with Prime and.
Yeah, just-
Dollar amount almost speaks for
providing you
itself.
information
Can I ask a question on page 82, the last page of the,
and page.
82, the Lacey and 14
Mhm,
one?
mhm.
I have noticed driving this grass, I think they do a great job landscaping that. I think our flowers look great, but I do think that sometimes this grass gets really long, just at the intersections when you're crossing a busy road, especially, going down to MM where there's the slight incline.
Yeah.
That tall grass, I think, can actually be kind of
In the-
obtrusive in your
Yeah.
line of sight.
Yeah. And there's actually, within the median, the tall grasses,
Yes, yeah.
we do get calls and we do go out and we chop them down.
I-
Yeah.
Because could it be considered, and once again, I really like the greenery, but could it ever be considered that be mulched or be treated differently within that
Sure.
area? And
So
I don't
is
know.
this tall grass like a native grass? It's
Yes.
supposed to grow tall?
Yes.
And
Yes.
so it's really been planted in the wrong
Yes,
location?
yes.
It could be dug out
presents
and
it-
put
because it looks
somewhere else.
great. It does.
It's
look-
beautiful
but
stuff, but it
it's a little
doesn't,
scary
it's
to
in the wrong
turn.
place.
Yeah.
Where is that again, though?
This would be east of this intersection then, wouldn't it? To the right?
Where is it?
I'm trying to
Is
figure
that
out.
what you're talking about?
So if I'm looking at this correctly, it's the continuing east to MM.
Oh, where
on
it
this
joins
right-hand side.
MM?
Yeah.
So like that,
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Okay.
Yeah.
right, gosh, as I drove my purse, right here, when
Yeah.
you're turning sometimes, you
Yeah.
can't
No, I
see
agree.
if they're
Oh.
oncoming traffic
agree.
because the
I
grass is so
agree.
long.
Oh, just that one spot?
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
where it is just, at least that's the section that I've encountered. I don't know if Scott is to who you've heard or where you're.
There are
Okay.
other ones.
Well, this is designated here as being mowed.
And I think it is, but I do think it grows kind of, I
Well,
think it grows kind of.
there
around
is,
it.
yeah, I
Well,
know.
you wouldn't normally mow a native planting, so I think I'm misunderstanding or
Well, on
misinterpreting.
this
This is just
contract-
plain old grass that's not mowed, or is
No,
it something
it's
that
tall
seems to grow
grass.
tall?
It
No,
does.
yeah,
Because then it's
it's
not really gonna be mowed unless people are
Well, see, and
complaining.
I wonder if, how accurate, I know exactly what you're talking about, sir. I don't know how accurate the map is.
If they follow this map, they're gonna mow it
Well, right, but they're,
20
it
times a
might
year.
it might be that the tall grass is kind of out here a little bit further. So the mowed area might be a little bit smaller, because there is some spots in there where that tall grass can be an obstruction to view.
And just if we're looking at it this year, if they could consider it, I guess, just because it is a tricky spot, that's all.
Right, right. I will mark that down.
So is this information only, or do we vote on this
Well, I think you could probably.
contract?
I mean, aren't we picking between one of these two vendors here and voting to approve?
Yeah, you can do that, yeah. That
And,
sounds good. That sounds
I
good.
mean, it's an action item.
Well, I move that we accept the low bid for the scope of work that's been indicated.
Very
That
good.
would be the prime lands.
Second for that.
I'll second it.
Second, and
Would we-
discussion on the motion.
Would we be recommending the alternate? You're saying leave it up to Joran. I mean, it adds another 2,800 if we recommend, or if we approve, like pre-approval on accepting the mulching alternate.
Yeah, we could include that in the motion and just leave it to staff to make a decision what they rather fulfill that.
That would seem appropriate, otherwise if we say we're not interested in the mulching alternate, then Joran can't add it on.
Yeah, I mean, is that, okay,
Yep.
all right.
Staff okay with mulching?
All right, all those in favor of the motion to approve Prime Landscapes as the contractor, signify by saying aye.
I,
All those opposed,
Thank you.
motion carried.
Thank you. Now the next one is the spring tree planting, and actually, Sarah, what's gonna happen is this is going to be referred at the next council meeting. And see, the park commission isn't going to meet, because we'd like to get it approved in March so that we're ready to go the first part of April. So it's not gonna come back to the park commission, because we won't be meeting, I'm hoping, until April 9th. So it'll be referred on your first council meeting and then come back the second council meeting in March. But, I wanted to make sure that the park commission viewed it and took action on it and was okay with it and all that kind of stuff, so that if we can ask you to then report if there's questions at the March common council meeting, that second one where it's approved, you can share that the park commission looked at it and all that
Bring
good
them
stuff.
back. I definitely do.
Excellent.
weren't there bids collected on this?
Yes, there are, and actually,
Yeah, this here.
there was, there's a total of 251 trees, and I did do a quick calculation that 91 of them are our trees, if you would, that the balance are for developments, which the development pays for. So the bid tab is McKay's for the 251 was 61,167. SRB was 61,746, which they actually did it last year. And then Dan Larson has done it before in the past. His was 65,581. So we really had some good competitive.
So they're all really close.
Oh,
too.
yeah, really good competitives. And McKay's, and what Anna will do too, is because then during the course of the year, there might be some smaller tree planting projects like 10 or 12 or whatever. She'll then work with the other groups, just to, kind of give them some business too, because we're appreciative of them giving us a price.
Does the staff or our forester see any advantage of one over the other, kind of seeing that
No, they're all.
the prices are all really close?
Well, they're all three competitive.
Anybody have better guarantees or something
No,
like that?
they're all just 1 year guarantee for everybody, so. It's the
So a
same.
tree planted this year, if it doesn't survive into next year, it gets replaced for free?
Correct. Correct.
They all do that.
Yep, they all do that. So I guess
Yeah, it's gonna cut off, which one was, bid, 60. So which one are you going through? Okay.
what, yep, we're gonna go
McKay's.
McKay's, they're the low bid at 61,167.
All right.
Wow, they're just like $500 or $600
Yeah,
less
that's
than
crazy,
the other.
yeah. Well, in that, you divide that 61,167 by 251,
How much is
that's for that's reasonable, and then they plant them too.
How much is that per tree?
250 maybe, 270?
And they plant them?
They plant them too, yeah, so it's really good. So if we're good with that, we'll take a motion.
Need a motion and a second for McKay's.
Move, the McKay's bid.
Okay, moved by Eric,
Eric.
second by
second.
David.
David, thank you.
Any further discussion on the motion? Hearing none. All those in favor of McKay's as the contractor signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed?
I will go to
Motion carried.
I'll go to the finance committee and kind of explain it
Thank you.
when we go there, but
Okay.
just for a heads up for you when it gets to you, if they got any questions, they,
Are you on finance or?
No, I don't.
oh, on the council.
Okay.
But if there's concerns at the council that the park commission didn't see this or whatever it might be,
Communication.
you have seen it, yep. Oh, communication. This is kind of like, do you want me to roll through all of these or
Is there anything that needs to be
nothing that needs action?
highlighted or?
Nothing that needs action, it's just kind of update information that I can certainly,
I had a question about understanding the capital improvement plan process.
yes. Let's take some time on that.
Yeah.
Kind of going in order, I guess, if we don't have anything about A and B,
Oh, sure,
Yep.
sure.
I would make just one comment on C. Anybody on A and B first? Okay, on C, the wind turbine was removed. It is gone. It was taken out last week. It's just dirt there now.
Then the Nine Springs Golf Course Management Contract, and I did include in your packet that it was, defined a little bit what, that it's $1,000 increase every year. I can just say it quick.
Do that.
The
Go.
park fee carryover,
Okay.
which is projects that we are carrying over from 1 year to the next. I did, just to give you some information, if you look at page 118, see these are park improvement fees along with fee in lieu of parkland dedication that we have for each of the developments. To give you an idea of, and I do want to call attention to this one. If you look at the bottom, Terravesa,
What page is that?
$72,700. That's how much we've got to build that park then.
There's not that much.
No. Phil wants that park built this year, and I said, well, Phil,
That doesn't seem like much.
show me the money.
Yeah.
kind of thing. So
So this
just-
is what came in as their dedication fees?
Well, see, what it is you've got parkland.
You're right, there's fee in lieu of land.
Yep,
But
but they
so-
didn't give any, but then there's park improvement fees, which are used to develop the park.
And that's what,
That's what we've got.
and that's what Fitchburg sets the rates at, so that's what they
do.
give.
They do.
That won't cover much.
Exactly.
And then,
Half a basketball court.
Yeah, that's why we're doing half courts.
You're not gonna get your whole, you're not gonna get 2 full courts.
And then if
Not
you
gonna
go
get
to
the
page
basketball.
119, these are the 202 accounts, so these are other park improvement fees that we have for specific parks. And then if you look at the park dedication one, which is which is the $810,000, that's the fee in lieu of parkland dedication account. And of that 810, we've got about 400 that's already designated, which
Where's the 810?
what's that?
I've lost.
If you look on page
That
119.
Page 119 on the right
Yep,
side.
there's account number 20234, about halfway down, 199 park dedication. And you see a balance.
Oh, yeah, I see it, 810, yep, gotcha.
810, that's the fee in lieu of parkland dedication. And then we've actually got about 400 of that's already allocated. You know, we got 130 for the inclusive playground, and then we have 110 for the water and stuff at McGaw.
I want to speak on that.
Well,
Yeah.
we're not approving the CIP at this point, are we?
No,
We're
this is just, I'm just providing the information.
It's
for
just
you.
more of a-
Yeah, like, what is this purpose of this addendum? Are we just kind
Well,
of,
what-
are
what's
we
it-
providing input into this? Are we, this is a communication, so we're not passing.
I'm giving it to you now because we'll have to
Yeah.
make in April, we'll have to take action to approve the CIP.
Well, let's
Okay.
keep our
So-
questions of clarification at this point rather than debate. I
Right.
mean, if we're gonna be seeing this down the road.
We will.
Well, I want to chew into one of these things right now, and I will chew into it again when it comes up for an actual vote. The McGaw Park shelter, water to the shelter is something that I've spoken against repeatedly for many years because I see it as entirely unnecessary. And very strangely, there's two different redundant projects here that were approved in the past that managed to get through somehow, even though I always spoke against them. $35,000 in 2016 to extend water to the McGaw shelter, and then another $75,000 in 2018 to do the same thing, to extend water to McGaw Park shelter. I can tell you, being right next to there and watching this for all the years that I've been there and keeping an eye on this closely, this basically has no impact on me. I'm not, over there relying on the water or well, sort of all of our money onto this, but this entirely is unnecessary. And as I have said before, the piece of paper that is stapled to the shelter right now that says it is barely over a slightly less than 1 milligram per liter or something like that for nitrate level is entirely within the specs with that piece of paper. That piece of paper is all the city needs to do, period. And the water is tested annually. I spoke with the DNR water expert specialist at the DNR station right on Fish Hatchery Road down here some years ago. Even he said, it's fine the way it is. The piece of paper covers us. That's all we have to do. And he just recommended testing the water more often, which has been rejected of testing it more often, as I suggested, passed on the suggestion to Scott. So it's only tested once a year instead of quarterly, okay, not in the middle of winter, but quarterly to see if there's any kind of a trend. That was his suggestion. That's been, denied or whatever. So we go on the one water test per year, and it has not changed. It has not been increasing, and there is no reason at all to spend this $110,000 on putting this water extension to the McGaw Park shelter. It provides a dead-end stub to the shelter. It makes it stale water. I hear from a lot of people around in my area who do not like the city water because it smells of chlorine, it tastes stale. They say they can smell the chlorine when they turn their water on. This shelter right here was remodeled a few years ago. A brand new 5 horsepower submersible pump was put down the large wall casing. A brand new pressure tank was put in the shelter. A brand new well pump controller was put in. A whole lot of money was invested just a few years ago. And as far as I can see, all of that will be abandoned and scrapped. for putting $110,000 into a worthless, unnecessary, completely unneeded project. So I don't like this thing, and I'm looking to kill this every time it comes out.
Patrick, I'm not passing judgment on your opinion, I'm just, we're approaching 10 o'clock, and if we can just.
This one
get-
burns me every time I see
Yeah,
this, that you're gonna
and
do this. I don't like it.
I get that, I'm not discouraging you from your
Okay.
opinion, I'm just suggesting that we go through these just for clarification at this point, because we're not gonna get through every one of these, if we're gonna,
Yeah.
And I don't.
That's a forewarning, you're gonna hear that again if I see this on
yeah,
the CIP
and
list.
that's fine, that's
It's
fine.
been an approved CIP for 2 years.
Yeah,
so it's
okay,
not-
then I wanna hear your justification for doing it,
Okay.
because I've heard none.
Very good.
Okay.
So we've got, and I'm not envisioning any new CIP projects for 2021, other than what we've got, scheduled, and just for example, for your benefit, Sue, if McGaw Park, in yours too, Dave, McGaw Park improvement, there's a capital improvement project 6211. And if you look down, you can see that in 2020, we did have scheduled security cameras, but that got removed. We do have pickleball courts scheduled in 2020. Then in 2024, replace the tennis courts and so on.
What page are you on?
120?
I'm on page 120. And we've got that for each of the different, McKee Farms Park has a CIP, and you can kind of read through there.
Yeah,
And like I say, what we'll do is this will be an action item next.
right. There's
Next.
something that I just want to make, I think is timely. And it is, and maybe I'm not understanding what I'm seeing, my lion eyes,
Mhm.
but I talked with you about the comprehensive plan having an alder amendment to site a community park on the west side of Fitchburg. And it's in this plan.
There's a piece of it that's in there.
Right, and so, the name of the park again is, or the
Well,
neighborhood is
It's
Dunn's Marsh area.
Dunn's Marsh, yeah.
Okay.
Dunn's Marsh neighborhood.
And I'm not saying it's a good idea or it's a bad idea, but we have never discussed it here that I know of.
Yeah, we
So-
haven't.
So what the process that occurs, and an alder and those neighbors, they would like that. It's in a budget process, but my questions would be, how many people live in the area? How many parks do they already have? Talk about need versus saying, the comprehensive plan amendment is saying that the Parks Commission will now look for a new community park on the west side of Fitchburg. So I just think that whole process is wrong, and I see that a little piece of it, as you say, is here. And so, do we just wait for things to land in our lap, or shouldn't we be having some kind of deliberative process about whether this is even appropriate? A study?
And another point is in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. See, anything over 5 years is just a placeholder, if you would, Sue.
Mm-hmm.
So as a staff person, I can't even begin to start to do any work on that project until it's within that 5-year thing.
All right.
So none of that process can begin until 2021, because then it falls within that 1, 2, 3, 4, that 5-year time frame. So we as staff are instructed, this is just a placeholder, but we're instructed not to do any work unless it falls within that 5-year planning cycle.
And then, it's not under your control necessarily, but an alder amendment to the comprehensive plan then directs us to do this, if
That
it's
could be, yeah.
accepted.
Yeah.
But if an alder said, I want to widen the street on my block, they'd say, oh, wait a second. You have to go to Public Works first to see if that's warranted.
Mhm.
But here, they don't say, we need a whole new park, and nobody from staff directs that whole process to start here at Parks as far as assessing for need and appropriateness. So what's up with that?
Well,
That's not,
like I say,
it's a planning issue
So I
that's
would see
incorrect.
that would be what we could do, the first thing that we would do is to determine whether or not it's appropriate, but I can't do that until 2021.
Is there a precedent? Is this typically how requests for open space or natural areas are created?
Not that I'm aware of. You know, this I think has been an initiative of Dorothy for quite some time.
But she's never brought it here.
Well, you know,
Are we talking about Jamestown?
Yeah, she may have.
But I mean, does she
A new
feel like
brand new
her
community
neighborhood is underserved, is that it?
Yeah.
But also, this is a neighborhood that has adjacent parks that belong in the city of Madison.
There's a 20-acre park,
is this,
Marlboro Park, 6 blocks
Is this
away.
quite being territorial? I gotta have my Fitchburg.
Like I say, when it falls within that 5, that'll be the first thing that we'll do is okay, Dorothy, is there a need for this or not a need for that? You know, they can do, you know.
So this isn't an action item, I understand that, but it is going to be an action item in front of the council as an Alders amendment
To the comp plan.
for the comprehensive plan.
That
So
could
they
be-
have an action item
they could-
that
could-
affects
that
this.
could be, but there's still so many things that need to be approved before anything
Yeah.
like that can happen.
Well, right, and the Parks Commission should know what the priorities are for the entire community versus one comprehensive plan amendment that just says, here's your new priority. It may be the best and greatest priority we would ever do, but it just, the way it's landing just doesn't sit well with me.
We're approving everything within 5 years, correct?
Yes, yes, so that doesn't fall within the.
Right. I know,
So
that's right, the budget is one thing, but we have this other thing going on
Well,
over here.
and what I could do is maybe I could ask, do you want me to ask Dorothy to come before the park commission and pitch what she's trying, or what her idea
Well,
is?
she should have, and, I
Yeah.
mean, it doesn't
I don't
anyone,
have control over what.
well,
what she
right,
can
and
do.
also doesn't, again, if somebody wants to widen their street and they walk in and they talk to
Oh, I agree. I
Patrick
agree.
Marsh about it,
I
he
agree.
doesn't say, well, let's get it in the comp plan. He says, let's go to Public Works. So there's a diversion, certain requests that are right out there in the open should be diverted here, so we can assess the
The
priority
need,
and the need and all that
There are
business.
planned projects and there are political projects.
Yeah, well, and again, it might be the greatest idea in the world, but we don't know.
Well, there may be something where, I think the alders can
Boy, we're getting right to that
Go-
10 o'clock,
I know.
10 o'clock.
go through
time.
the CIP proposals
we do.
and add things in
We're almost through.
on an amendment, and if it passes, it's in, and then it probably goes through the process of the rest of the meetings to actually plan it out or
Well,
something.
and
Some
through
things
our-
can start that
through-
way.
through
But,
our-
it- but, it-
through our
but in the
investigation.
future, it shouldn't, is my point too. Is it,
We need
we're
to
no,
know.
it shouldn't be any easier to do this than it is to order that your own street be widened. And that's an internal process that the city should create to say that it happens this way versus that way.
I think it'd be helpful to bring Dorothy in or invite her to
Well,
come.
certainly when we fall within that 5-year envelope and Dorothy has that project out there, come on, Dorothy, what's your?
I mean, ultimately, it goes before the council and the
Well, for
political
approval,
process starts
all
there
those kinds of
anyway,
things.
so.
If I'm following what you're saying too, I think you're saying that it would be better for, let's say, an alder, to
What comes to us first?
discuss with us and see if we're interested in it. It kind of starts here in the park commission, and we pass on our request through our CIP to the council, and it works its way up
Right, we
like
have a
that.
process of deciding if it's, of figuring out the benefits, what other things
Mhm.
are on our agenda,
Mhm.
what other budget items, blah, blah. But again, the city staff there should be something in black and white where the city staff says no matter who wants to do something, there's a progression.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying.
I think that would be a process change though, because I do think that for the comp plan, that is an odd time where something like that can happen. And I agree with you, it doesn't make sense to
Mhm.
me, but I do think that seems like a time where where something can be proposed and all of a sudden it does.
But, okay, and so,
Then it goes through an evaluation process in which there would be some criteria or some analysis versus, I need this.
It gets it kind of gets in the filter of being processed, yes, where I think what we have discussions then, but from my understanding, during this comp plan, it is kind of an odd time where things can get all of a sudden put into the budget for consideration. Scott, I probably look at you as the expert, sorry, but but right, where this is kind of an odd situation where all of a sudden it was presented as an amendment within the comp plan, so all of a sudden it's starting to show up in our.
yeah, so next Tuesday they're deciding.
Yeah.
A week from,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, next Tuesday, the 10th, that amendment will be voted on.
I would suspect there's probably a lot of things in the comp plan that go there to.
Well, they'll be
Die.
accepted or rejected, right, I get
Yeah.
that too.
So
But,
there's a
you know,
full process that goes through.
yeah. But when Wade Thompson came to speak with us about the comp plan a couple of months, October was my first meeting. I mean, that would have been the time
Yeah.
for us to hear about it. And so, I'm not trying to pick on her personally, but this one happens to affect
Impact
parks.
yeah.
I mean, was she talking to Wade about anything having to do with this or any city staff in October? I mean, we could have talked about it, so I'm done, but now everybody knows what I'm upset about.
You what?
Now everybody knows what
you know.
upset me.
Couple,
Well, and understandable, but, at the end of the day, it's just because she makes a recommendation to put it in the comp plan, that.
It may be rejected, I understand that too.
Absolutely, like I say, it's certainly worth, because Dorothy feels it's worth a look at it, so we'll certainly do that when it falls in the timeline for us to do that.
Staff usually will put a CIP plan in the proposed budget, but the mayor can decide not to include it. Usually it's with some justification, but,
Right,
it is a guide and
Yeah.
it is used for budget purposes,
Right.
so.
but see, this is like a twofer because it's in the comp plan and the
Yeah.
CIP, and we don't even know what any of it looks like.
Well, we don't even know if it's justified yet.
Right,
Okay. Carry on.
So then, so CIP, so we'll take a look at that next month.
I want to throw in one comment
then-
here on the CIP, and I found it before when I was looking at this at home, I can't find it now, but there was just to mention for point of information, there was a letter to the editor in the most recent Fitchburg Star from someone who wrote about the tennis court and the poor quality of it in the Chicory Meadows Park. And I looked it up, and I found it in here somewhere, I don't know what page it's on, but I did see that tennis court, I believe, is on the schedule. It's a few years out, but it's on the schedule for whatever it is, resurfacing or something like that.
23 or
So
20.
if that person is listening or anybody there, it's in the works.
I think it was like a 9-year-old.
It could have been, yes, but, everybody deserves their say. At least, we address their concern.
So then as I mentioned, the annual report's in there, which a lot of good information on stuff we did in 2019. And then we've got staff reports. And then actually, the Park and Forestry Division will be here in April. But what I wanted to do is I wanted to change the April meeting to the second Thursday. So that'll be April 9th instead of April 2nd. Because actually Jordan's going to be off on spring break that first week. And then we'll actually be in the council chambers.
Why isn't it?
So we'll be in the big house.
Does somebody else in here?
No.
Okay.
Transportation.
So April 9th.
Did you say Park and Forestry? Is that Joran and
And
Anna? Both?
Yep.
Why not just one at a time. Like,
Because there's kind of synergy between the forestry operation and the parks operation. The Parks Department does a lot of forestry restoration work. Okay,
We're done. don't we?
yes.
New
yes.
business? None? Announcements, which you already covered? Need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
So moved. Okay, second?
Second.
Okay, seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion.
10:05.
Carried. We are
10:05.
Adjourned.